Chapter 6146. After Lin Xian heard this, he frowned. It seemed that he was in trouble. The power of the immortals was unstable. Why? Was it not fused well? Or was it because of other reasons? However, in the eyes of others, being able to fuse was already a heaven-defying thing. One had to know that even the Grand Supreme had not succeeded, but Lin Xian had. No, he had to solve it. Lin Xian furrowed his brows tightly. The power of the immortals shook just now, causing him to be injured. It would be best if he didn't die after a few more hits. He had to solve this problem. But what should he do? Now that the battle was so intense, could he make a move now? He didn't know. Lord Alcohol said, "There is a way, the land of destiny." While blocking Master Rashi's attack, he quickly sent a voice transmission to Lin Xian. "Go to the land of destiny. You are the first to attain the Tao. You are qualified to go to the land of destiny. There, you can defy the heavens and change your fate. Perhaps after changing your fate, your problem with the power of the immortals will be resolved." There was such a thing? Lin Xian dodged the Higgins attack and quickly retreated. At this moment, he focused on defense. In his mind, he kept thinking, the land of destiny, one of the Jutian Shidi. However, it was said to be extremely mysterious. People from the outside couldn't enter at all. It was much more difficult than entering the netherworld. As long as one could open the 9 underworlds, it would be fine. However, the conditions to enter the land of destiny were extremely harsh. It wasn't a matter of opening, but after the deity ground descended, only the first to attain the Tao could enter. This was also the reason why the Higgin was so crazy before. Now, in the entire universe, perhaps only Lin Xian was qualified to enter. As for the land of destiny, could it be open like the netherworld? Lin Xian didn't know at all. "Kid, hurry up and go to the land of destiny now. Firstly, it will solve your problem. Secondly, there is one more thing." "What is it?" Lin Xian asked. Lord Alcohol said, "Find someone, find someone. You must find him. This is very important to our divine realm. Only when we find that person will our God realm's subsequent forces appear. Only then would he be able to truly contend with." And Lin Xian felt immense pressure. Could he really compete with Higgin? Don't look at how they are evenly matched right now. However, the current Grand Supreme had not even revealed his true body. He was fighting them across the boundless void. As for the Saber Immortal, he did not appear either. It could be imagined that there were still many experts in and who couldn't come out. What was the reason? However, if those people were to really come out, they would likely not be able to stop them. He had to solve this problem. Lin Xian took a deep breath and said, "Alcohol Lord, who are you looking for?" To be honest, I don't know the details, but his name used to be E. What's his name now? No one knew. What does he look like? No one knew. However, he should be in the land of destiny. Lin Xian was dumbfounded. How were they going to find him? Lord Alcohol didn't say anything else. Instead, he quickly sent a voice transmission to the distant battle god. After the battle god heard this, he waved his sleeve and a ray of light quickly flew over. When it arrived in front of Lin Xian discovered that it was actually a bottle. Inside the bottle was golden sand. A bottle of sand. What was this? Lord Alcohol said, "This is Yi's token. The rest is up to you. After all, none of us have been to the land of destiny." "I understand." Lin Xian took the bottle of golden sand and put it away. He took a deep breath. According to Lord Alcohol, he should be able to summon the land of destiny. In the next moment, he closed his eyes. "Everyone, please help me stop him. In a while, I will summon the land of destiny." After saying that, Lin Xian began to sense with all his might. Not good. Master Rashi, the Essence Immortal, and the others, who were fighting in the distance, exclaimed, "Grand Supreme, please help. He might be going to the land of destiny." The Grand Supreme, who was fighting, shouted coldly, "Don't even think about going anywhere." After saying that, he slashed down with his sword and forced all the Earth Immortals who were fighting with him to retreat. Then, the sword, which was imbued with boundless power, went straight for Lin Xian. I sensed it. Lin Xian suddenly opened his eyes and said to the people around him, "Retreat quickly." Buzz. Just as he finished speaking, a spatial power suddenly appeared on Morong Qingqing, Xueqi, and the others, taking them away quickly. The people of the Gu family in the distance turned pale. Some of the elders even spat out blood. Gu Santong was the same. His body was swaying. It was too close. He almost failed. Previously, it was these people of the Gu family who used spatial magic to take away Morong Qingqing, Xueqi, and the others. However, they did not teleport Lin Xian because a mysterious power appeared on Lin Xian's body. It was also a spatial power. It seemed that the other party was about to leave. Slash. In the sky, the heavenly punishment sword slashed down. The starry sky was completely shattered. Except for Lin Xian, there was no one else. Could it succeed? Lin Zhan became nervous. The fighting god, Lord Alcohol, and the others also looked very serious. In the next moment, the endless power of the heavenly punishment erupted. Lin Xian's figure was completely enveloped. At that moment, Lin Xian let out a low cry. His body was instantly teleported away by a surge of spatial power. Boom, boom. His figure disappeared. The power of the heavenly punishment had completely pierced through the starry sky, forming a pitch-black hole. Lin Wuti was dead? No one knew. However, in their opinion, even an Earth immortal would not be able to survive after being hit by the heavenly punishment sword. Lin Wuti had just attained Dao. How could he still be alive? Even Lin Zhan, Lord Alcohol, and the others were not sure. However, at this moment, the fighting god said, "I saw him leave with my fiery eyes of truth." That's great. Lin Zhan and the others heaved a sigh of relief. However, the fighting god said, "No, it's not over yet. We can't let others discover this. We have to continue fighting, and we have to fight even more crazily." Understood. Lin Zhan and the others nodded. Everyone, fight with me. Then, these people from the divine realm charged over again. A great battle broke out. All the people in the universe were terrified. Could it be that Lin Wuti had really died? This battle was earth-shattering. It lasted for several years, and both sides suffered losses. Of course, Lin Xian no longer knew all of this. Lin Xian was teleported away at the most critical moment. However, he was still swept by some of the power of the heavenly punishment. He spat out large mouthfuls of blood, and many cracks appeared on his body. Fortunately, he had the ancient land. The power of the heavenly spring of life inside surged out and began to heal his injuries. Just like that, he seemed to be drifting in the darkness. After an unknown period of time, he finally saw light. After leaving the spatial passageway, was that the place of destiny? He didn't know what kind of place it was. Among the 9 heavens and 10 earths, he had already seen the heavenly land and the 9th underworld. They both had incomparably mysterious powers. Moreover, there were many families, sects, and great emperors in the 9th underworld. After all, there was no restriction on attaining Dao in the 9th underworld once every 10,000 years. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian's figure flickered, and he rushed out. This time, he had to defy the heavens and change his fate. He had to completely obtain the power of an immortal. Chapter 61:47. Lin Xian rushed out of the passage. However, when he arrived, he still couldn't see clearly what was going on in the land of destiny. He felt the power of the immortals in his body throbbing fiercely. This caused him to be injured again. What was going on? Lin Xian was stunned. Logically speaking, he should have suppressed his injuries before. However, why did he feel that the power of the immortals seemed to be even stranger after coming to the land of destiny? In that instant, Lin Xian realized that he couldn't mobilize his power. He could only say that the land of destiny was too strange. Then, he turned into a shooting star and fell down. Although Lin Xian couldn't use the power of the immortals for the time being, he still had the power of the immortals. Therefore, he landed on the ground like a bright ray of light. On this day, the warriors in the endless cities and countries below all looked up at the sky. Look, what's that? What a beautiful shooting star. Make a wish. What shooting star? A powerhouse roared. Don't you feel a mysterious power from above? We've never seen this mysterious power before. Go! There's a treasure falling from the sky. All of a sudden, all the powerhouses in this space moved out. Soon, they came to a valley, but no one dared to go in. Because at this moment, the valley was torn apart, and the ground was split open, forming an endless abyss. The sky was also broken, and the mysterious power inside was circling around. It made everyone's hair stand on end. After some elders came, they carefully investigated. Then they said, "Don't act rashly. This kind of treasure falling from the sky must be dangerous. Wait until all the powerhouses are here." More and more powerhouses gathered outside. In the valley, under the ground, Lin Xian muttered, "Damn it, this place is too strange." What kind of place was the land of destiny? Why did he feel that his injuries had worsened after coming here? Of course, the worsening of his injuries wasn't fatal. However, Lin Xian couldn't move now. Moreover, he felt that there was a huge spirit vein below. However, as he landed, it was directly smashed into pieces. At this moment, the power of the spiritual veins was converging towards him. Gradually, it enveloped him and formed a huge statue of the spirit vein. Forget it. I'll try to recover my strength first. Lin Xian closed his eyes and began to recover silently. Meanwhile, more and more people came from outside. A tall expert stomped his foot, causing the heavens to crumble and the earth to crack. A bladesman with a long saber on his back sent out a saber strike that destroyed the sky. There was also a swordsman with a long sword on his back. In short, all kinds of experts had come. There were even some demonic beasts that were extremely terrifying. There were so many experts. When the young people in the distance saw this scene, they exclaimed in shock. Some of the elders sighed, "It's over. With so many experts here, we have no chance at all. Forget it. Those who aren't from the top clans and sects shouldn't participate." That's right. If you're not a top-notch expert, scram. It was a tall expert. With a stomp of his foot, a terrifying force spread in all directions. Obviously, the peerless experts in front were going to join forces to seal off the entire valley. What kind of treasure is it? A man with a long sword on his back walked over. His name was Jian Jingyun. His figure was very slender. Dressed in white, he was extraordinarily handsome. Among everyone, he was very eye-catching. Therefore, as soon as he appeared, countless people turned their heads to look at him. What a terrifying sword chi! His sword technique is about to reach the phenomenal level. It's said that he's about to become a sword emperor. What? He's about to prove his Tao? So fast. I remember that he's very young. Countless voices of discussion could be heard. Jian Jingyun looked around and said, "Almost everyone is here. Let's do it." After saying that, he pulled out his long sword and slashed forward. This was a peerless sword strike. With supreme power, it split heaven and earth. However, the mysterious aura in front was too powerful. Jingyun was actually forced back. His face was pale as he roared, "Why aren't you doing it?" Seeing this, the others said, "Do it." Those who came here were all quasi-emperors. They only had one goal, and that was to prove their Tao. The land of destiny was different from the starry sky of the universe. It was somewhat similar to the land of the ninth underworld. There was no suppression of the great Tao. As long as one had the strength, he could break through and prove his Tao. Of course, even so, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven to prove one's Tao. At this moment, these people had been called quasi-emperors for thousands of years, but they had no hope of proving their Tao. Now that a treasure had fallen from the sky, how could they miss it? These people quickly attacked, shaking the sky and the earth in front of them. The others retreated one after another. At the same time, more people came from afar. These people should have come from an even further space. Among them, a war chariot stopped. There were many figures standing inside. These people were all dressed in black, and the one leading them was a man with long, flowing hair. He was quite handsome. At this moment, he was holding a leaf in his mouth. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Good stuff. This time, I must get it." However, the elders around him said, "Don't do anything rash. Don't you see that there are so many experts in front? This time, without my order, you are not to act rashly." "Old man, don't worry. It's just a group of quasi-emperors. I don't care about them. Hearing this, the surrounding people were also surprised. They all turned their heads to look. Was some unparalleled expert here? Could it be a great emperor? However, when they saw that the youth was only a quasi-emperor, they frowned. This guy was just an ordinary quasi-emperor. What was there to be arrogant about? That's right, this youth was 6 Crown King. However, he was not strong enough here. This was because 8 Crown King was extremely terrifying among quasi-emperors. Even so, these experts working together could not enter. Boom! In the distance, a great emperor came. After this great emperor came, he showed off his peerless brilliance. He threw out a palm in the air and fell. Retreat quickly. Those people all retreated frantically. Although they were top prodigies and unparalleled experts, they were all ants below the great emperor. They did not dare to fight against the great emperor. In the sky, a large golden palm fell. It was blocked in midair. This shocked countless people. What kind of treasure was in the valley? It could even block the power of a great emperor. The golden palm great emperor frowned tightly. His palm was even more terrifying than an extreme weapon. This was because he had refined his palm into a weapon. However, it was still useless. What was that treasure? An extremely sharp light burst forth from his eyes as he looked down. He wanted to see clearly what was going on. When he touched the power of an immortal, he suddenly screamed and his eyes bled. The golden palm great emperor kept retreating. The surrounding people were all stunned. Even a great emperor was injured. Could it be that there was something more terrifying than a great emperor inside? Could it be a divine item? Some people said in horror. When the others heard this, they gasped. A divine item. A divine item fell from the sky. Chapter 61:48. The golden palm emperor sucked in a cold breath. A divine item? His eyes shone with an even colder light. He wanted it even more. His path to becoming a great emperor was not easy. At this moment, 3 more figures came from afar. They were all great emperors. After the 3 great emperors landed, they did not immediately attack, because they could see that the golden palm emperor was injured. Let's join forces, one of the elders said. The others nodded. The 4 great emperors joined forces and walked out. They attacked again, and a terrifying great emperor power erupted, sweeping across the world. Everyone retreated to a place extremely far away. Jin Jingyun and the others were unable to advance any further. Damn it! With the great emperors here, they had no chance at all. However, at this moment, the handsome man with a smile walked out from the war chariot. He said, "It's time for me to show my strength." The elder beside him was so angry that his face darkened. He slapped him on the head. "Bastard, do you want to die? For great emperors, I can't protect you." The black-robed man smiled. "Don't worry, I'm called Changsheng. How can I die so easily? Trust me." Changsheng Qin's eyes shone with a cold light. Then, he turned into a stream of light and rushed over. When the others saw this scene, they were all stunned. Who is this person? Does he want to die? I know that he's Changsheng Qin of the great Qin family. He's an expert at courting death. It's said that he runs wherever there's danger. What? Changsheng Qin? So it's him. If it's him, then it's not strange. The surrounding people discussed animatedly, because, in their country, some people were very famous. For example, Jin Jingyun was a sword genius. Some people were famous because they courted death, such as Changsheng Qin. 6 Crown King's strength was also outstanding. However, compared to Jin Jingyun, he was far inferior. However, this guy could always turn danger into safety. It was said that once, he offended a great emperor and came back alive. Therefore, he also became a legendary figure. However, this time, there were 4 great emperors in front of him. Could this guy succeed? When they came to the front, there was no one here. The people behind did not dare to approach. In front of him, the power of the great emperor destroyed everything. Immortal Qin took a deep breath. Then, he actually began to dig a hole in the ground. Then, he made his way through the ground. At the same time, he took out a jade pendant and placed it in his mouth. Escape. His figure disappeared once again. When he reappeared, he was already in the valley. The people outside didn't know because they couldn't see clearly. The four greater heavenly martial emperors ignored him. After all, Qin Changsheng was just a quasi-emperor. If these great emperors knew about this, they would definitely be shocked. After Immortal Qin entered, he wasn't too happy either, because he felt a tremendous pressure. He then took out many treasures from his ring of holding. Some broken shields, some bone fragments, and some broken cloaks. He wore all of them on his body, and his defense was tight. Then, he struggled to walk forward. Where did this fellow find these things? He had actually managed to reach the front. When Qin Changsheng saw the enormous spirit vein statue in front of him, he was stunned. There was actually someone inside the statue. Qin Changsheng was incomparably shocked. Who was it? Ancient people? Furthermore, he was an ancient expert. Could it be that he was already dead? Buzz. At this moment, Lin Xian suddenly opened his eyes, because he felt that someone had come. In fact, he had already noticed the few greater, heavenly martial emperors above when they were fighting. However, he couldn't move now, so he didn't pay attention to them. Moreover, in his opinion, these greater heavenly martial emperors couldn't enter at all, because they were just ordinary greater, heavenly martial emperors who had only cultivated a divine flame or immortal energy. And what he cultivated was the power of immortals. Although he had just confirmed his Tao, ordinary greater heavenly martial emperors were no match for him. Originally, he wanted to quietly recover here. However, he didn't expect that someone could actually come, and it was actually just 6 Crown King. This made him frown even more. Outside, Qin Changsheng was even more shocked. Oh my god, he didn't die. He turned around and ran. Inside the crystal, Lin Xian's face darkened. What did this guy mean? Saying that he was a zombie, what kind of joke was this? Right now, he couldn't use his strength. Otherwise, he would definitely slap the other party to the ground. Qin Changsheng ran for a while. Seeing that the other party didn't chase after him, he boldly returned. Then, it circled around the crystal and spun around it non-stop. This guy was quite handsome, and from the looks of it, he was so young. He shouldn't be an ancient person, right? Who are you? Are you from the land of destiny? At this moment, a voice sounded in Qin Changsheng's ear. Qin Changsheng was shocked. You can still speak. You really didn't die. Lin Xian snorted. Nonsense, of course I didn't die. I'm asking you, is this the land of destiny? Qin Changsheng was stunned. Dare I ask, brother, which mountain are you from? You don't even know where you are? Or are you someone from outside the land of destiny? Impossible? The people outside couldn't come in at all. Qin Changsheng shook his head. This was common sense. Lin Xian had no choice. He couldn't say that he really came from outside, right? If this news spread out, the peerless experts of this land of destiny would probably make a move. Who knew if there were any land immortals here? No matter how strong he was now, he was no match for a land immortal. Moreover, he wasn't in a good state right now. He could only make up a reason. I've been cultivating for tens of thousands of years, so I'm not sure now. You've been cultivating for tens of thousands of years? I'm dying of laughter. Who exactly are you? Where did you come from? What's your name? Lin Xian said in a deep voice. I'm an immortal. You can call me Mad God. Mad God, you're arrogant enough, even more arrogant than me. Qin Changsheng curled his lips. Of course, he didn't believe that an immortal could do this. What kind of joke was this? However, it was possible that the other party had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years, because such a thing had indeed happened before. Therefore, he said, of course this is the land of destiny. Have you become stupid from sleeping? Lin Xian was extremely surprised when he heard this. It really was the land of destiny. It seemed that he had come to the right place. However, why was his condition getting worse and worse after coming to this land of destiny? Didn't they say that the land of destiny could defy the heavens and change fate? Shouldn't he have fully recovered by coming here? Lin Xian began to ask again. After a while, he fell silent. According to Qin Changsheng, the land of destiny could indeed defy the heavens and change fate, but it was very difficult. It could be said that it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. In the land of destiny, there might not be one in hundreds of millions of people who wanted to defy the heavens and change fate. Of course, there were also people who succeeded. Otherwise, others wouldn't want to change fate so crazily. However, this difficulty was beyond Lin Xian's imagination. Moreover, Lin Xian also learned another piece of news. That was the land of destiny. Although it could defy the heavens and change fate, it was more according to fate. At first, Lin Xian didn't understand what it meant. However, when Qin Changxing gave an example, Lin Xian understood. Qin Changxing said, for example, a person's talent is limited. He will be a saint for his whole life and can't become a quasi-emperor. If he had a heaven-defying opportunity outside, he might really be able to break through and become a quasi-emperor. However, it was impossible in the land of destiny. Chapter 61:49. Hearing Qin Changxing's words, Lin Xian was stunned. How was that possible? If one's fate couldn't be changed, was there no chance at all? Wasn't that too despairing? One had to know that in the 10,000 worlds, those powerhouses risked their lives to find all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Wasn't it just to fight for that trace of possibility? But here, there wasn't even a trace of possibility. Wasn't that too sad? Lin Xian was very surprised. But the next moment, he frowned. If there wasn't even a trace of possibility, then what were the four great emperors fighting for outside? What were the surrounding powerhouses looking at? Shouldn't they be indifferent? Because even if you got the heavenly materials and earthly treasures, your fate was destined and you couldn't break through. Then what was there to fight for? This guy was lying to me. Lin Xian stared at Qin Changxing, and an extremely cold light burst out of his eyes. You're not big, but you have a lot of ideas. How dare you lie to me? Lin Xian's eyes bloomed, and the power of the immortals pressed down. Qin Changxing was immediately pressed to the ground. He was dumbfounded. This guy's power was so strong, even more terrifying than the great emperors. Who the hell was this guy? Soon, he came back to his senses and said, I didn't lie to you. If you don't believe me, go out and ask. Anyone else would have the same answer. Lin Xian snorted coldly, then tell me, what are these great emperors fighting for? According to your theory, these great emperors can't break through even if they get the treasures. Qin Changxing snorted angrily and said, You bastard, did you sleep too much? They can't break through, but they can give the treasures to the Fane of Destiny. The Fane of Destiny? Lin Xian frowned. What is that? Qin Changxing was too lazy to care. Why? Doesn't he know anything? He explained. The Fane of Destiny is a place that can defy the heavens and change one's fate. In the place of destiny, one's fate has been decided by the heavens. However, as long as you can get the help of the Fane of Destiny, you can defy the heavens and change your fate. Someone had done it before, which was why others were so crazy. If you wanted to change your fate, of course, you had to ask the Fane of Destiny for help, but the conditions were extremely harsh. Endless amounts of heavenly materials and earthly treasures were needed. Some people as strong as great emperors might not be able to take out such a treasure. Therefore, when they saw other treasures, they would try to take them and give them to the fortune shrine. Although it wasn't enough to change their fate, it might be able to change their luck. For them, this was extremely good. Was the Fane of Fate the one who controlled fate? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. In other words, if he wanted to change his fate, he would need the help of the fortune shrine. How many heavenly materials and earthly treasures did they need? Lin Xian asked. One must know that he had the ancient land of eternity with him. If there was really no other way, he could just dig out 2 treasures from there and give them to the other party. That way, he would be able to completely consolidate his immortal force. However, but Qin Changxing said, it might not necessarily be a heavenly treasure. Like I said before, the fortune shrine's conditions are very harsh. Sometimes, it was for treasures, and sometimes, it was for secret manuals. Sometimes, you were asked to do something, but no matter which one it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. All right, I've said what I needed to say. Next, I'll dig you out. I'm going to give you to the Imperial Sword Villa. Then, I'll exchange you for 2 sword spirits from the Imperial Sword Villa and give you to the Fortune Shrine. You're too weird. If you give it to the Fortune Shrine directly, I'm afraid they won't accept it. Hearing this, Lin Xian's little face turned black. This guy, did he treat him as a treasure? This Qin Changxing was indeed bold. He was a little expert at courting death. Even in the face of the immortal force, he was not afraid at all. This guy took out another broken battle armor, which was full of cracks. However, Lin Xian was surprised when he saw it. This battle armor was extraordinary. There was an extremely mysterious power on it. It was probably something that belonged to a peerless master when it was in good condition. The Fortune Shrine was indeed mysterious. It seemed that he had to find a way to recover and then go to the Fortune Shrine. He wanted to see what kind of conditions the Fortune Shrine would give him. The four great emperors outside were fighting earth-shattering. At this time, Qin Changsheng broke out of the ground. He took Lin Xian away from the battlefield. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they all exclaimed, "Look, what's that?" Someone came out from the ground. Isn't that Qin Changsheng? He actually didn't die. He actually came out alive from the attacks of the four great emperors. It was too unbelievable. As expected of a legendary figure, he was really good at courting death. What is he holding in his hand? What a terrifying aura. Retreat. Could it be that he dug up a divine item that fell from the sky? This guy's luck was too good. Had his luck been changed by the Fortune Shrine? Why was it so powerful? Countless people were envious. If this guy offered this divine item to the Fortune Shrine, would it change his fate? At that time, it wouldn't be a problem for him to become a great emperor. In the midst of the discussion, Qin Changsheng ran even faster. Meanwhile, the four martial monarchs were infuriated when they saw this. They risked their lives to get a treasure, but in the end, it was snatched by a little ant. Unforgivable. Extremely terrifying immortal chi erupted from the four great emperors. Terrifying immortal techniques were about to erupt. The expressions of the spectators changed. Run for your lives. When the great emperors are angry, millions of corpses will fall. The faces of the people of the great Qin family turned green. This guy was really courting death. "Elder, what should we do?" The leading old man said. "What else can we do? Run, don't worry about that guy. That guy's life is very tough." After saying that, he led his family members and quickly fled. "Little ant, stay for me." The great emperor roared and slapped out with his palm. The golden palm covered the sky and the earth, descending from the sky. This attack was impossible for anyone below the great emperor to block. Qin Changsheng also roared crazily. He drilled into the ground again. At the same time, the battle armor on his body shone brightly to resist. After that attack, he was sent flying and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. However, he didn't die. He continued to flee with Lin Xian. Lin Xian was also surprised. This guy's life was really tough. One had to know that great emperors cultivated immortal qi. The power of the divine flame completely surpassed the laws. Those below the great emperor couldn't block it. This guy actually didn't die, even in the myriad worlds, or even in the nirvana realm and the immortal land. Those were all extremely top geniuses. Although the fate of the land of destiny was already decided, some geniuses seemed to be more interesting than the land of nine serenities. The Golden Palm Great Emperor was angry and attacked again. The other three great emperors also attacked. Qin Changsheng's injuries were even more serious. His body was shattered and many of his bones were broken. However, he still didn't die. One had to admit that this guy's life was really tough. Lin Xian also teased. Qin Changsheng spat out a mouthful of blood and said, "What's the use of this? I'm just not dead. What I want is to become stronger. I want to become a great emperor, so I must go to the Temple of Destiny." Interesting. I also want to go to the Temple of Destiny, so I'll help you. Speaking of this, Lin Xian looked around. He channeled the power of an immortal. A mysterious power enveloped the surroundings. At this moment, the power of the four great emperors erupted. It directly enveloped Qin Changsheng and Lin Xian. Chapter 6150. When the people outside saw this scene, they sucked in a breath of cold air. It's over. That Qin Changsheng is dead for sure. Being surrounded by four great emperors, no matter how lucky he was, he would definitely die. The expressions of the people of the great Qin family also changed. Did that kid really court death? They were helpless. They were no match for four great emperors at all. The four great emperors attacked Qin Changsheng. Their control of power was perfect. They definitely wouldn't hurt the divine object. Qin Changsheng originally thought that he was dead for sure. However, when he found that Lin Xian's power on his body could actually block the attacks of the great emperors, he was stunned. He was stunned. Senior, you're not really in existence above the great emperor, are you? At this moment, he even changed the way he addressed him. Lin Xian smiled. I told you that I'm the mad god, but you didn't believe me. Previously, I killed a great emperor with one sword and a supreme with one punch. It was very easy. The past is like smoke. It's better not to mention it. Lin Xian sighed. After hearing this, Qin Changsheng's eyes almost popped out. What? Killing a great emperor with one sword? Heavens, what kind of method is this? Thinking of this, he immediately put on a smile. As he ran, he said, Senior, I was rude before. Please forgive me. Senior, you lack a disciple. What do you think of me? I'm very tough. I'll be your disciple. Hee. Take me to the Temple of Destiny. I can teach you a peerless divine ability or two. Lin Xian said, What do you think? Qin Changsheng said, Senior, you might have slept for too long. You don't know the rules of the Temple of Destiny, right? With my current ability, I'm not qualified to go to the Temple of Destiny. Lin Xian, F***CK, you trash. Lin Xian was speechless. Feelings were a waste of time. In that case, he still had to rely on himself. He had to recover his mobility. Thinking of this, Lin Xian said, Do you know if there's a very special place here? It's the kind of place that has endless power. Qin Changsheng said, Yes, but that place is very dangerous. It's okay, take me there. Immortal Qin hurriedly increased his speed, bringing Lin Xian with him. The place they were going to was called the Glacier Land. The four great emperors were all stunned. Immortal Qin didn't die. They chased after him in a frenzy. This brat was too strange. He definitely couldn't let him escape. The people in the distance also exclaimed, as expected of a legendary figure. He's still alive. 5 days later, Immortal Qin was seriously injured. Not a single place on his body unharmed. However, he was still alive and kicking. He looked ahead and said, Senior, look, we've arrived at the land of glaciers. There is an extremely terrifying power here. Actually, even without Qin Changsheng saying it, Lin Xian had already sensed it. He said, Throw me over. Qin Changsheng directly threw Lin Xian onto the glacier. In the next moment, a rumbling sound rang out as endless glaciers swept towards Lin Xian. A gust of cold air spread in all directions. Immortal Qin hurriedly activated it, his tattered battle armor blocking. The four martial monarchs who were rushing over from afar came to a stop too. Their faces darkened. The land of glaciers. Was this guy crazy? Just now, he threw the divine object into the land of glaciers. Was he willing to die in vain? The Golden Palm Emperor roared crazily, Immortal Qin, you're dead? How dare you destroy the divine object? A woman walked over. This woman was called Nan Feiyu, and she was also a great emperor. Her face was filled with incomparable killing intent. The other party had destroyed her hope. Unforgivable. The four great emperors were filled with killing intent. The spectators further away exclaimed, Immortal Qin is crazy. Is he planning to become enemies with the great emperors? Immortal Qin was about to cry. It's not my fault. It's Senior who wanted to go in. He still wanted to explain, but suddenly, a shocking power erupted in front of him. The entire land of glaciers shook violently, and countless large cracks appeared. The four great emperors' faces changed. How is it possible? Someone can break the land of glaciers. Who is this person? Nan Feiyu's eyes flashed. She said, There seems to be a figure in the divine object. Could it be a powerhouse who was sealed? Could it be that he wasn't a divine object, but an ancient powerhouse? The great emperors guessed. Lin Xian roared angrily. He used the power of an immortal to break the land of glaciers. There was indeed endless power under the land of glaciers. There were actually 3,000 ice dragon veins. Moreover, they were very old, which made Lin Xian very happy. He directly activated the ice dragon veins. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, dragon roars sounded, and 3,000 ice dragon phantoms circled above the land of glaciers. As soon as these ice dragon phantoms appeared, they swept across the world. The four great emperors kept retreating. Immortal Qin even dug a hole in the ground and escaped instantly. My goodness, this land of glaciers is actually filled with dragon veins, and 3,000 ancient dragon veins at that. How much power did they have when they erupted? If they could take these dragon veins and give them to the Fane of Destiny, they might be able to change their fate. Thinking of this, many people's eyes turned red. Behind them, a quasi-emperor rushed over and took out a gourd, wanting to take an ice dragon. However, the ice dragon smashed the gourd with a claw. That old man was also smashed into pieces and died with a scream. What a terrifying power of the ice dragon. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Those quasi-emperors didn't dare to act rashly. Jian Jingyun also came, but at this moment, he was also facing a great enemy. Looking at this scene, Nan Feiyu snorted coldly, "You quasi-emperors, don't even think about it. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died." The power of this ice dragon is too terrifying. It's not something you can absorb. Even the few of us might not be able to do it. What she said was indeed true. The four great emperors furrowed their brows tightly. This power was a little too strong. Moreover, 3,000 ice dragons were together. If they touched one, wouldn't they be attacked by all sides? Perhaps only the Sword Emperor of the Imperial Sword Villa could suppress it. Jian Jingyun also sent out a beam of sword qi, flying into the distance. He said, "I've already informed the Imperial Sword Villa. Soon, the Sword Emperor will come." His eyes were filled with excitement. This time, he had made a great contribution. He wondered what treasures the Imperial Sword Villa would reward him with. Perhaps they could reward him with a few ice dragon veins. Hurry up and do it. Otherwise, when the Imperial Sword Villa comes, we won't have a chance. The four great emperors roared and began to attack. Those ice dragon veins were arrogant and unruly. They seemed to have transformed into divine dragons. How could they allow humans to snatch them? Even if these humans were great emperors, they couldn't. A great battle broke out in an instant. Everyone retreated to the distance. The four great emperors used all their means, trying to catch a few ice dragon veins. However, the 3,000 ice dragon veins condensed into one, turning into an even larger dragon shadow. It directly sent the great emperors flying. The four great emperors were all injured. Their emperor blood dyed the world red. Qin Changsheng originally wanted to attack, but at this moment, he hesitated. Although he was courting death, he wasn't really courting death. In such a situation, he didn't dare to attack. He could only mutter, "Just now, the senior that I threw in, he wouldn't have died, right?" However, at this moment, a joyful voice was heard. That voice came from within the glaciers. "Oh, dragon veins? The heavens are really helping me. Be obedient and be absorbed by me." Chapter 61:51. The surrounding great emperors were all stunned when they heard the voice. Who was speaking? Moreover, he was eyeing the ice dragon vein. Damn it, did he not care about them at all? They looked around. However, they didn't find anyone, which made them even more confused. However, on the other side, Qin Changsheng was stunned. He could naturally tell that it was Lin Xian's voice. It was unbelievable that he didn't die. He was indeed more powerful than the great emperors. Moreover, it seemed that he wanted to absorb the ice dragon vein. Indeed, in the land of glaciers, Lin Xian's eyes shone with an extremely cold light. In the next moment, he walked out. "Look, there's someone inside," Nan Feiyu exclaimed. Everyone looked forward and saw a crystal floating in the air. Sealed within the crystal was a young man. Wasn't that the divine object? He was indeed alive. Who was this young man? Why could he release a mysterious power? Was he trying to absorb the ice dragon vein? Was this a joke? Even the great emperors couldn't do it. How could he? The Golden Palm Emperor said coldly. However, Lin Xian didn't care at all. His gaze fell on the ice dragon vein. Then he said, "Become my power." Arrogance, boundless arrogance. The ice dragon veins roared crazily when they heard this. 3,000 ice dragon phantoms roared into the sky, shattering the 9 heavens. This kid was dead. He would be torn to pieces. That was what everyone thought. Because the Golden Palm Emperor and the other great emperors kept retreating in the face of the 3,000 ice dragon roars. One could imagine how terrifying this power was. Roar. However, Lin Xian didn't retreat at all. He roared into the sky. His voice was like a dragon's roar. Moreover, it seemed more terrifying than the 3,000 ice dragons. A long roar shook the 9 heavens. In the next moment, the bodies of the 3,000 ice dragons all shook. The entire sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The people in the distance exclaimed, "He angered the ice dragon vein." Although they were dragon veins, after countless years, they were almost the same as demonic beasts. Even the great emperors couldn't resist the anger of the ice dragon vein. However, they didn't know that the ice dragons weren't shaking because of anger, but because of fear. Lin Xian's voice was filled with an extremely terrifying power that could destroy anything. This power caused the ice dragon veins to tremble. As if they had met the dragon god, they wanted to kneel down and submit. Lin Xian took a deep breath. Instantly, the power of the ice dragon vein began to dissipate. They turned into streaks of light that flew toward him and entered his body. The surrounding people were dumbfounded. The 4 great emperors were also shocked. In their opinion, this guy. However, they soon realized that they did not see him as such. He even began. The 4 great emperors were stunned. What kind of method was this? At least they didn't. Qin Changsheng was also extremely shocked. This is really a senior. He can't really be a god, right? With a roar, he scared the 3,000 ice dragon veins. He couldn't imagine such a thing except in his dreams. While these people were in a daze, the 3,000 ice dragon veins were completely absorbed by Lin Xian. There were all kinds of dragon-shaped phantoms around Lin Xian's body. There was a power in his body that was erupting like a volcano. The surrounding ice kept shattering. Swallowed. He swallowed them all. Qin Changsheng's heart ached. "Senior, you should leave one for me. If you left one for him, he might be able to offer it to the Fane of Destiny and let them help him change his luck." The other great emperors were also angry. "You're too arrogant. You're powerful, but you can't take the 3,000 ice dragon veins for yourself. Even if you swallow half, they won't say anything. At least, you eat the meat, and they can drink the soup. But you ate it all. How could these great emperors not be angry? Although I don't know what's wrong with you. But, are you challenging us? I want you to know that great emperors are inferior." The Golden Palm Great Emperor took a step forward, and a sharp light burst out from his eyes. He had to get some dragon veins. "Spit some out. Give me 100 and I won't do anything to you. Cooperate obediently. Otherwise, the 4 of us will join forces and you won't have a good time." Qin Changsheng rolled his eyes after hearing this. The 4 great emperors were too cowardly. Each of them only asked for 100. Did they dare to ask for more? However, even if it was 100, Lin Xian didn't seem to care. At this moment, Lin Xian had closed his eyes and formed a seal with his palms. He was using the power of the ice dragon veins to recover his body. Even if he couldn't fully recover with the power of an immortal, he should at least have some mobility. Otherwise, he would just sit there like a treasure and be robbed by others. "Good boy, you actually closed your eyes. Are you ignoring me? Damn it, I want to see what qualifications you have. How dare you look down on me?" The Golden Palm Great Emperor roared, and the divine fire on his body erupted, turning into a golden palm. This palm slammed out, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. Everyone could feel the great emperor's anger. "It's over. This kid is dead for sure." Those who were watching the battle from afar exclaimed in surprise. Even Qin Changsheng frowned. Should he remind that fella? After all, that guy doesn't seem to be able to move. Buzz. Suddenly, Lin Xian opened his eyes. Looking at the peerless palm coming at him, he didn't dodge at all. In the next moment, he snorted coldly, and 2 rays of light burst out from his eyes like lightning, piercing through the 9 heavens. With a crack, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The golden palm suddenly cracked open. The Golden Palm Great Emperor retreated as if he was struck by lightning. His body was covered in cracks. "No, what kind of power is this? Damn it, save me." He asked the people around him for help. However, it was useless. Just as he screamed, he shattered with a loud bang. His body and soul were destroyed. A rain of blood fell between heaven and earth, and there were even mournful cries. Heaven and earth mourned the death of a great emperor. At this moment, all the forests in this area felt a sense of sorrow and bloodline suppression. What happened? They looked up at the sky. Did a great emperor die? Impossible, right? Weren't the great emperors legendary characters? How could they die? These people were crazy. Even in the land of destiny, there were many great emperors. However, it wasn't common for a great emperor to die. Sometimes it was even rare to see one in 10,000 years. But today, the emperor had fallen. As for everyone present, they were even more shocked. Those who were watching the battle from afar directly knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. The other 3 great emperors felt their hair stand on end, and their bodies also trembled. What's wrong with this young man? Just now, he killed a great emperor with a single glance. That's impossible, right? I'm dreaming. Nanfeiyu slapped himself directly, trying to wake up from the illusion. The other 2 great emperors were about to kneel. Chapter 6152. Lin Xian had killed a great emperor with a single glance. That had truly shocked everyone. Even Qin Changsheng was dumbfounded. Oh my, it's really an immortal senior. Greetings, mad god. He ran out of the ground and shouted loudly. The others were also shocked. Mad god, is this a godlike figure? No wonder he could kill a great emperor instantly. Greetings, mad god. The other 3 great emperors also hurriedly bowed. They discussed telepathically. Have you heard of this name? I don't know. Looking at him, he seems to have just woken up. Maybe he was hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years ago. At that time, I wasn't even born yet. How would I know? Don't say anymore. This person is too terrifying. We can't offend him. I hope he can be magnanimous and let us go. The people in the distance even knelt down. Greetings, mad god. Lin Xian retracted his gaze. Then, he coughed twice and spat out a few mouthfuls of golden blood. Sigh. Lin Xian sighed. The power of an immortal was too strong. His current strength exceeded that of an ordinary great emperor. He should be a super great emperor. However, it was too unstable. Lin Xian occasionally used it. Then, the power of an immortal would shake. He couldn't stand it. He hurriedly used the power of the ice dragon vein to freeze the power in his body. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief because he felt that he could move next. He was free. He didn't absorb the 3,000 ice dragon veins for nothing. What's going on? Did he vomit blood? Qin Changsheng took a look and his heart beat wildly. Is this senior going to die? The other 3 great emperors also narrowed their eyes. What's going on? This mad god seemed to be injured. Could it be that he was weak? Should we take advantage of his illness and kill him? They all had the idea of attacking. At this moment, Lin Xian snorted coldly. A ray of light burst out from his eyes and then enveloped the 3 great emperors. He activated the power of the Rinnegan. Instantly, the 3 great emperors' scalps went numb. They felt as if their souls were about to be reincarnated. Lord Mad God, please spare us. The 3 of them hurriedly bowed and apologized. They didn't dare to have any other thoughts. Tell me more about the fortune shrine. The frost on Lin Xian's body shattered. He walked out of the crystal and approached the 3 martial monarchs. The 3 martial monarchs did not dare to hide anything from Qin Nan. They immediately told him everything they knew about the sacred palace of fortune. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes again when he heard that. Previously, he heard Immortal Qin mention a bit, but it was only a rough idea. Now, he knew more about it. It turned out that the people in the land of destiny were born with a destiny. This was called destiny. If you have the fate of becoming a great emperor, then you can become a great emperor. Otherwise, you will never be able to cross this hurdle, unless they went to the fane of destiny. As for finding Destiny's Shrine, it was similar to what Immortal Qin said. However, usually the Fortune Shrine would send emissaries. Very few people could actually go to the Fortune Shrine. Most of them were messengers of fate. Of course, those who could meet the messenger of fate were few and far between. As for those who met the messenger of fate, Very few of them were able to change their fate. At most, they could change their fate. Perhaps they might have another chance. Of course, it wasn't that no one had ever changed their fate. There were indeed people who were able to change their fate successfully, such as profound enlightenment. His fate didn't allow him to become a great emperor. However, he had found the Fortune Shrine and fulfilled the requirements of the Fortune Shrine. The Fortune Shrine helped him become a great emperor. Later on, there was Great Emperor Profound Enlightenment. The Profound Enlightenment finger shocked everyone. Great Emperor Profound Enlightenment was very famous in the Land of Destiny. His current strength was unfathomable. No one knew what cultivation level he had reached. There was also someone who had changed their fate. It was a woman called Nangong Dushio. She was originally a great emperor. However, there was no hope for her to improve in the great emperor realm. However, she had also entered the Fortune Shrine. In the end, her strength had increased by leaps and bounds. It was because of such stories and legends that others were willing to risk their lives to enter the Fortune Shrine and change their fate. Lord Mad God, we've told you everything we know. Nan Feiyu said softly. Can you let us go now? We won't dare to go against you anymore. Lin Xian said, I hope you can go. He waved his hand. The three great emperors hurriedly left as if they had been pardoned. Qin Chongsheng also wanted to leave. Lin Xian glared at him and then smiled. Didn't you say that you want to go to the Fortune Shrine too? Great, we're going there. No, senior, I was just joking with you. How would I dare to go with you? Lin Xian's face darkened. Am I that old? To be honest, I'm not much older than you. I'm considered the younger generation. What? Qin Chongsheng was stunned. Younger generation? Who are you kidding? You must be an old monster. An old monster who has lived for tens or hundreds of thousands of years. Humph, what are you pretending for? Qin Chongsheng didn't believe it. The others didn't believe it either. It was too heaven-defying for the younger generation to kill a great emperor. No one in the Land of Destiny could do that. Therefore, he didn't believe that Lin Xian could do it either. Lin Xian shook his head and didn't say anything else. Instead, he asked, What kind of gift do you think I should prepare for the Fortune Shrine? Can you enter? I'm not sure. However, if you can take out some immortal pill or divine item, you can definitely do it. Lin Xian rolled his eyes when he heard that. He really didn't have such a thing. Qin Chongsheng said, If you don't have it, then there's only other way. I know two ways. First, go to the Imperial Sword Villa and get a top-grade sword spirit. With it, you might be able to see the Messenger of Destiny. Second, there's a fiery divine tree in the south of this place. If you can find the fruit it bears, then you can also see the Messenger of Destiny. However, these two things are very difficult. The fiery divine tree bears fruit once every 100 years. After it bears fruit, it will only stay for 10 days. Then, the fruit will fall to the ground, turn into energy, and disappear. So can you find it? I don't think there's much hope. As for the Imperial Sword Villa, it was an extremely terrifying sect. They were filled with swordsmen. Moreover, the Villa Master of the Imperial Sword Villa was a sword emperor. His battle strength was extremely terrifying. More importantly, this sword emperor had seen the Messenger of Fate before. Although he didn't change his fate, he was still a sword emperor. Although he didn't change his fate, he had changed it. Therefore, the other great emperors didn't dare to provoke him. The Imperial Sword Villa was the overlord of this region. Lin Xian nodded after hearing this. All right, then follow me to the fiery divine tree. With that, he waved his sleeve and flew into the distance with Qin Chongsheng. Did he leave? The people watching from afar heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Lin Xian disappear. Just now, when he was here, the pressure was too great. They couldn't even breathe. Not long after Lin Xian left, a few rays of light flew over from afar. These people floated in the void, immortal qi and divine fire erupting from their bodies. They were also great emperors. When they arrived, their eyes shone with a piercing light. Their voices were like thunder. Where are the treasures here? Where is the ice dragon vein? Where did they go? Tell me. Chapter 61:53. The newly arrived great emperors were both furious and terrified when they learned that Lin Yun had left. Was there really someone who could kill great emperors with a single glance? Why didn't they believe it? These people couldn't have been scared silly, right? Lin Xian didn't pay any attention to these newly arrived great emperors. At this moment, he brought Qin Changsheng and prepared to set off for the fiery god tree. The land of destiny was also extremely vast and divided into many regions. The region Lin Xian was currently in was called the Ice and Fire region. The reason for this was because the land of glaciers and the fiery god tree were two forbidden lands. Hence, this region was named after them. The 3,000 ice dragon veins in the land of glaciers had already been devoured by Lin Xian. Now, he was heading for the fiery god tree. Along the way, Qin Changsheng muttered in his heart, "This guy won't devour the fiery god tree too, right? If that's the case, this region will probably have to change its name." Finally, they arrived near the fiery god tree. It wasn't just a tree root, it was like a sea of fire. Even from far away, they could feel a shocking heat. It was as if they would be melted into ashes if they got any closer. At this moment, a battle was taking place at the edge of the fiery god tree. The two monstrous beasts were fighting over a single leaf of the fiery god tree. The two great emperors were very strong. They were fighting to the death, and their eyes were red. Lin Xian was speechless when he saw this. He said, "The people of this place are all so poor. You're fighting to the death over a leaf." Qin Changsheng rolled his eyes when he heard this. Poor? To be honest, he didn't lack cultivation resources. But so what? After cultivating to 6 crown king, he felt a bottleneck, which was his life providence. Was he destined to only be 6 crown king? If that was the case, it would be useless no matter how many resources he was given. Next, he would collect resources and treasures for the Shrine of Destiny. If one were to say that they were poor, they were really poor. After all, the Shrine of Destiny wouldn't care about ordinary things. These two demonic beasts must have their own reasons for fighting with each other. Sensing Lin Xian and Qin Changsheng's arrival, the two great emperors in front stopped fighting. They were also intelligent. They wanted to prevent others from taking advantage of them. He saw that immortal Qin was only a 6 crown king. The two fiend beasts didn't seem like it. They were both 7 crown kings. Roar. The two of them released angry roars, wishing to suppress immortal Qin. Qin Changsheng took 2 steps back and said angrily, Today is special. Otherwise, even if I have to risk my life, I would steal this leaf." Seeing that Lin Xian didn't retreat, the two demonic beasts were enraged. One of the demonic beasts rushed over and slapped Lin Xian. With a loud clang, the earth shook. Lin Xian was completely unscathed, while that demonic beast's claw was shattered, badly mangled. He let out a miserable roar, and a trace of terror appeared in his eyes. Such a powerful physique had completely surpassed his own. He was no match for him at all. Therefore, he crawled on the ground. The other demonic beast also retreated uneasily, giving up the fire god's leaf. Lin Xian shook his head slightly. "I'm not interested in these things. You can take them away. I want the fire god fruit." Hearing this, a trace of terror appeared in the eyes of the two demonic beasts. One of the demonic beasts sent a spiritual message. It meant that the fire god tree was extremely terrifying. Even great emperors didn't dare to approach. Otherwise, they would be turned into ashes. "Master, be careful. It's fine." Lin Xian walked forward. When Lin Xian stepped into the fire god tree forest, boundless flames instantly swept towards him. However, Lin Xian wasn't afraid at all. Even though he couldn't easily use the power of an immortal right now, he had the 9 heavenly body. His physique was extremely strong, and he had the 9 young divine body. Therefore, when these flames hit his body, they were all absorbed. How terrifying! The two demonic beasts were even more terrified. Behind them, immortal Qin also gritted his teeth and followed after seeing this scene. Along the way, Lin Xian walked through the sea of flames. He could see the shadow of a tree in front of him. It was a tall tree that stood between heaven and earth, like a divine tree that reached the heavens. He only dared to spread it out. There were extremely terrifying fire laws on it. Every leaf was like a divine fire that kept on pulsating. At this moment, The sound of fighting could be heard in front of him. Lin Xian was shocked. Immortal Qin also said, "It can't be, right? Someone is fighting here. It must be a top clan." He looked at Lin Xian. Lin Xian said, "It's fine." After saying that, he didn't take a detour and directly walked forward. There was indeed a battle ahead. It was a battle between three clans. They were the Fire Wolf clan, the Vermilion Bird clan, and the Fire Ant clan. These three clans were all top clans led by great emperors. The great emperors held extreme weapons. The others took out all kinds of energy and natural treasures, causing the extreme weapons to shine with dazzling light. They protected them. As they advanced, they fought and blocked carefully. Suddenly, they seemed to see someone walking over from afar. Who was it? The three clans were facing a great enemy. They were all afraid that the other party had invited help. However, when they saw that it was two young men, they were all stunned. Especially the young man walking in front. The flames on his body seemed to be even more terrifying. He was like a sun, shining so brightly that they couldn't open their eyes. "Who are you?" The great emperor of the Fire Wolf clan shouted angrily. Lin Xian ignored him. Courting death. The great emperor punched out with his fist. When it hit Lin Xian, the great emperor's expression changed. Not good. He felt a huge force bouncing back and sending him flying. He vomited a large mouthful of blood. Ancestor. The people of the Fire Wolf clan were all stunned. The great emperors of the other two clans didn't dare to make a move. Lin Xian didn't even look at these people and directly walked forward. The three clans retreated one after another, making a path. When Immortal Qin followed beside him, he was envious. Look, wherever he passed, the great emperors would retreat. What kind of glory was this? Unfortunately, it wasn't his strength, but the strength of the young man in front of him. Otherwise, if he came alone, he would be beaten to death by the three great emperors, not to mention not being able to reach here. Just like that, Lin Xian walked past the three powerful clans and continued walking. In the end, Immortal Qin couldn't take it anymore. He could only stand there and wait for Lord Mad God. "When you leave later, don't forget to take me with you," Immortal Qin shouted. Lin Xian waved his hand, telling him to wait there, and continued on his way. Finally, he got close to the divine tree. As for the fiery god tree, it seemed to have sensed someone's arrival. Boundless divine fire exploded, as if it could burn the heavens and destroy the earth. This power caused the people of the three great clans to continuously retreat. The great emperor's expressions also changed. "Not good. The fiery god tree is angry. Let's retreat." They were helpless and frightened. Immortal Qin was also frightened and kept retreating. However, Lin Xian stood there like the sun god of war, unaffected by anything. He used his Rinnegan and looked around. Soon, he sighed and didn't. With his soul power, he enveloped the entire fiery god tree. However, he didn't find the fiery god fruit. However, he stared at the huge tree trunk again. It was glowing. He couldn't see through its soul. At this moment, the fiery god tree released a wave of soul power. "Human, don't go too far." Chapter 6154. Everyone in the fiery god tree's territory was stunned by its furious roar. The members of the three major families were dumbfounded. The fiery god tree could roar. This was something they had never seen before. The Fire Wolf Emperor laughed bitterly. "Perhaps we're too weak and are being treated like ants by it?" But now, a true powerhouse had arrived. Even the fiery god tree felt threatened. Lin Xian stood under the fiery god tree. He clasped his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Don't be angry. I don't mean any harm and won't attack you. I just want a fiery god fruit. I want to go to the Destiny Temple." The fiery god tree was silent for a while, then said, 3 years ago, I bore a fiery god fruit. However, at that time, no one came. Thus, when it fell onto the ground, it turned into boundless flames. I can only bear one fruit every 100 years, so if you want it, you'll have to wait another 100 years. 3 years ago? Lin Xian sighed. Then there's nothing I can do. He shook his head. Goodbye. With that, Lin Xian turned and left. Qin Changsheng followed and said, there's nothing I can do. You just woke up, so you can only leave it to fate. After Lin Xian left the fiery god tree's territory, the fiery god tree let out a sigh of relief. It muttered to itself, "What's wrong with this human? Why do I feel a trace of fear? His body is extremely strong, but with my strength, I shouldn't be afraid. However, I feel that there's another kind of power in his body. It's a power that I've never seen before, a power that can split heaven and earth. Does this person also need to go to the Destiny Temple? Does he also need to change his fate?" The fiery god tree was confused. Finally, it was silent for a while. Then, its endless branches shook. All the living beings in its territory had to get out. With an angry roar, the temperature of the entire fiery god forest suddenly rose. The Fire Wolf clan, Vermilion Bird clan, and Fire Ant clan's expressions changed. The three emperors quickly left the fiery god tree with their people. Lin Xian didn't care about what was happening here. Since there was nothing, he could only go to the Sword Villa. But Qin Changsheng said, "Are you sure you want to go to Imperial Sword Villa?" The Sword Emperor of the Imperial Sword Villa wasn't any weaker than the fiery divine tree. In addition to the Sword Emperor, there were other Sword Dao experts in the Imperial Sword Villa. In my opinion, I would rather offend the fiery divine tree than offend the Imperial Sword Villa. After all, he had offended the fiery god tree. If he could run, he would. That tree wouldn't chase after him. Once the Imperial Sword Villa was offended, countless swordsmen would chase after them. Even if he fled to the ends of the earth, he wouldn't be able to escape. After Lin Xian heard this, he smiled. "It's okay. I also want to see how strong the legendary Sword Emperor is." Since the other party dared to use this name, it meant that he was an expert in the way of the sword. Lin Xian was also a swordsman, and a top-notch one at that. Naturally, he would want to exchange blows with an expert of the Sword Dao. Fortunately, he was not in the right state of mind. Otherwise, he would have gone to meet the Sword Emperor. While Lin Xian was rushing to the Imperial Sword Villa, the others were also rushing to the Imperial Sword Villa. Because it was said that the Imperial Sword Villa was going to produce a top-notch sword spirit. This was a big deal. A sword spirit was formed by the condensation of countless Sword Dao wills. It was an extremely strange thing. This thing was of great benefit to a peerless swordsman. Not only that, but the others also wanted it. Because it was said that with a sword spirit, one could summon the messenger of fate. Perhaps it could change their fate. To the other experts, this was simply too attractive. Therefore, countless people headed to the Imperial Sword Villa in the name of congratulating them. Of course, this was only on the surface. Obtaining a top-notch sword spirit was their real goal. In a mountain range in the ice and fire hell, a man with a black sword on his back walked over. This man was dressed in white and was extraordinarily handsome. After he left, the entire mountain range split into several pieces, and the countless demonic beasts inside were all killed. Moreover, these demonic beasts all had one thing in common, and that was a sword between their eyebrows. Obviously, they were all killed instantly. Xiao Baifei was very satisfied that he had finally mastered the floating blood sword technique. Then, he looked into the distance and gritted his teeth. "Imperial Sword Villa, just you wait. This time, I must take back the flying sky sword." With a shake of his body, he turned into a sword light and disappeared. Wherever he passed, the void kept shattering. Some passers-by saw this scene and exclaimed, "What a terrifying sword chi! Retreat quickly. Don't fight with him." Those families and sects who were in a hurry all made way. In front of such a peerless swordsman, they were no match for him at all. On the other side, at this moment, the Imperial Sword Villa was also fully prepared. They would welcome countless experts. They had such confidence. Even if these people's goal was a top-notch sword spirit, so what? With the Sword Emperor, no one could succeed. At this moment, in the back mountain of the Imperial Sword Villa, there was a very mysterious cave. This was a forbidden area, and only a few people could come here. At this moment, an old man hurried over and entered the cave. Inside the cave, there was an extremely terrifying sword chi flickering. The old man had to use all his strength to move forward. Finally, he stopped and looked ahead. In front of him, there was a figure with his back to her. and near that figure, there was also a sword shadow. It was like a stream of sword chi that was constantly changing. This was the top-notch sword spirit, and this figure was the Sword Emperor. The old man said respectfully, reporting to the Sword Emperor, "We are ready to receive those experts." "But say," the man in front spoke. The old man took a deep breath and continued, "But we got the news that Xiao Baifei may come this time. Xiao Baifei stole the floating blood sword technique, and we don't know where he is hiding. Recently, his strength seems to have increased greatly. He once appeared in the nearby forest and killed many top-notch beasts. It seems that he has mastered the floating snow sword technique. This time, I am afraid that he will come to harm our Imperial Sword Villa." "It doesn't matter." The Sword Emperor smiled. He turned around and saw that the Sword Emperor was also extraordinarily handsome. Moreover, on the surface, he looked like he was in his 30s. In fact, he had lived for 30,000 years. Even if he has mastered the floating snow sword technique, so what? He is still no match for me. I have already mastered that move. The old man was overjoyed. "Really? Congratulations, Sword Emperor." He was really too excited. That move had already made the Sword Emperor go into seclusion for 1,000 years. Now he had finally mastered it. In other words, the Sword Emperor's fate was not over yet. The Sword Emperor still had hope of breaking through. Everyone had their own fate, and this fate was preordained by fate. Others could not see it accurately. Even they could not judge it accurately. Only those who had been stuck in cultivation for hundreds or thousands of years would know when they were in despair. It turned out that this was the ceiling of their fate. Only in that moment of despair would they know their fate. The Sword Emperor had once gone into seclusion for thousands of years to cultivate one move, but there was no progress. So much so that the people around him thought that the Sword Emperor had reached the ceiling and could not move forward anymore. But unexpectedly, he broke through again this time. It seemed that the Sword Emperor's fate was stronger than everyone had imagined. Chapter 6155. Sword City was a city below the Imperial Sword Villa. At this moment, countless figures gathered in the city. These figures had powerful auras and terrifying laws. Sword City originally had some disciples of the Imperial Sword Villa who were responsible for receiving them. But at this moment, they were also a little dumbfounded. Because this time, the people who came were beyond their imagination. "Look, isn't that beautiful woman Emperor Feiyu?" Everyone looked over and saw a woman in white walking over. It was Nan Feiyu. Heavens, even the great emperors came? On the street, many people were shocked. Everyone knew about Nan Feiyu. She could be said to be the pride of the land of ice and fire. She had endless halos and was incomparably dazzling. Moreover, along the way, she had never suffered any setbacks. In fact, she had never been defeated. Just like that, she became a great emperor all the way. It could be said that countless people envied her. Another person said, "Look at that person. He's even more terrifying." Everyone turned their heads around, only to see a figure covered in flames walking over. The flames on this person's body were extremely terrifying. No one dared to look directly at him, and they were all defeated. Fire Wolf Emperor, the supreme emperor of the Fire Wolf clan. He actually came too? It was said that 5 years ago, he once fought with another great emperor and injured him. It could be said that he was extremely powerful. Everyone discussed in low voices. After the Fire Wolf Emperor in the sky heard it, he didn't say anything. After all, he was also a great emperor now. He didn't care about the ants below at all. How could he care about the discussions of these ants? His figure flashed, and he instantly disappeared from the city. The Thunder Sovereign had also come. Heavens, they saw countless experts appear like emperors, standing above the 9 heavens. Although they only stayed for a while and disappeared in an instant, but it still made the others envious. Those young people's eyes were red. Their lifelong dream was to become a great emperor. They had heard all kinds of legends about great emperors since they were young. However, there weren't many who had really seen a great emperor, very few. Some people even didn't see a great emperor in their lifetime. But now, they saw a great emperor here. Moreover, several great emperors appeared together. This was something they didn't dare to imagine even in their dreams. At this time, a big man laughed and said, "I wonder if there are any other powerful people who have appeared?" As he spoke, he stomped an ant to death. This was originally nothing much, but in the next instant, the earth trembled and the sky shattered. A cold voice came at him. "You actually dared to kill a member of my fire ant clan. Go to hell." With a loud boom, the burly man was smashed into pieces. The surrounding people were stunned. What did this big man do? The burly man's face was also filled with despair. He had only stepped on a small ant and was killed by someone. He had also cultivated to the Saint King level. The death of a Saint King had truly shocked many people. After all, a great emperor was a lofty figure in the eyes of cultivators like them. Those above the Saint Plane were already extremely terrifying. Now, a Saint King was actually killed in an instant. What exactly happened? Someone said that he had trampled an ant to death. That's not an ant, that's a member of the Fire Ant clan. Now that the Ant Emperor has come out, aren't you courting death by daring to kill a member of the Fire Ant clan? What? The others gasped in shock. Suddenly, they didn't even dare to walk now. They were afraid that they would trample an ant to death on the road. If it was a member of the Fire Ant clan, then they would be in trouble. For a moment, everyone trembled. At the same time, 3 more figures appeared in Sword City. These 3 people were Lin Xian and the others. In addition to Qin Changsheng, there was another person beside him. This person carried a long flame sword on his back. He looked like a middle-aged man, and the aura on his body was also extremely terrifying. However, at this moment, the other party was standing beside Lin Xian with great respect. Coming into the city, Lin Xian's eyes flickered. Is this Sword City? He looked around and felt several powerful auras, which were the auras of divine fire and immortal qi. There was more than one great emperor, and there were even a few familiar auras. At this moment, the middle-aged man with a long sword on his back walked over and said, "Young master, this is Sword City. Behind it is the Sword Villa." Yes, Lin Xian nodded. They had met this man with a long sword on his back on the road. Logically speaking, this should be one of Qin Changsheng's enemies. Qin Changsheng liked to court death and snatch treasures when he had nothing to do. This man with a long sword on his back was called the Fire Cloud Sword King. Once, Qin Changsheng had snatched the treasure that the other party had taken a fancy to, but Qin Changsheng refused to admit it. He said, "The treasure is ownerless. Only those with ability can obtain it." The Fire Cloud Sword King ignored him. He was the 8th Crown King. Qin Changsheng was the 6th Crown King. Therefore, he immediately made a move. However, he made a mistake. Not only did he make a move against Qin Changsheng, he also made a move against Lin Xian. In his opinion, Lin Xian and Immortal Qin were definitely in cahoots. In the end, he suffered a tragedy. Lin Xian subdued him with a single glance. The Fire Cloud Sword King immediately submitted. Heavens, although it was just a glance, the sword contained within was something he had never seen before. Therefore, he willingly became Lin Xian's follower. From then on, he had always followed by Lin Xian's side, all the way until they reached this Sword City. Lin Xian did not care either. His main goal now was to go to the Imperial Sword Villa and obtain the Sword Spirit. As for who was by his side, let him be. Anyway, they could not threaten him. Qin Changsheng was similarly incomparably excited. He said, "Our great Qin family should be here too." Finished speaking, he took out the family token. While transmitting voice, he brought Lin Xian and the rest to the hall ahead. In an incomparably simple and unadorned hall, Qin Changsheng saw the people of the great Qin family. "Old man, you guys really came too." Great Qin family. When the white-haired elder Qin saw Qin Changsheng, he similarly revealed a smile. He said with a smile, "I knew that you little brat wouldn't die so easily. The heavens really have eyes. You're still alive." "This is?" He looked at Lin Xian, somewhat surprised, because he didn't know Lin Xian. However, he felt that he was somewhat familiar. There was no other way. The previous Lin Xian, whether it was when he devoured the dragon or when he attacked the great emperor, had a mysterious aura. His body carried a trace of mysterious power. Under this kind of power, Even the great emperor might not be able to see clearly, let alone Elder Qin. He couldn't see Lin Xian's face clearly at all. Therefore, he didn't recognize him at this moment. Qin Changsheng didn't explain too much. He said, "This is my new big brother, Lin Gongzi." New big brother? Elder Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, he ignored it. Qin Changsheng always liked to do unreliable things. Originally, he thought that Lin Xian was also a young genius. However, when he saw the Fire Cloud Sword King standing respectfully behind Lin Xian, he was immediately stunned. Chapter 6156. Elder Qin might not know Lin Xian. However, how could he not know the Fire Cloud Sword King? This was the land of ice and fire, the extremely famous Sword King. The other party was the Eight Crown King, and his talent in the Sword Dao was extremely terrifying, not weaker than Jian Jingyun. Moreover, he was someone who had a high chance of becoming an emperor within 1,000 years. Such a person could be said to be famous, like thunder in the ears. Therefore, he hurriedly walked over and said, "So it's the Fire Cloud Sword King. Sorry for not welcoming you. Sword King, this way please." He was extremely respectful. However, the Fire Cloud Sword King stood there motionless. He even said coldly, "So it's Elder Qin, you're too polite. In the future, don't call me Sword King, because I'm not worthy. I've already followed Lin Gongzi and become his follower. No, perhaps I'm not even qualified to become a follower. However, if I can stay by Lin Gongzi's side, even if I become a servant, I'm willing." When he heard this, Elder Qin was stunned. What was going on? The famous Fire Cloud Sword King was actually willing to be a slave, just to stay by Lin Gongzi's side. He looked at Lin Xian again and was extremely surprised. Who exactly was this young man? However, Lin Xian didn't answer at all. He stood there with his hands behind his back, but his gaze was looking into the distance. It was as if he was investigating the situation in the entire Sword City. Elder Qin could only look at Qin Changsheng. Qin Changsheng said, "Old man, don't ask. In short, I'll give you a reminder. Don't offend him. Even if you offend the great emperor, don't offend him. Do you understand? Otherwise, not only will you be in trouble, but the great Qin family will also be in trouble." Elder Qin was shocked again. No way. Was this person's background even more powerful than the great emperor? Could it be that he was the descendant of a few terrifying giants? Thinking of this, he took a deep breath. He no longer looked at the Fire Cloud Sword King, but said to Lin Xian, "Lin Gongzi, this old man's eyes are clumsy. I've neglected young master. Young master, this way please." At that moment, a disdainful voice sounded out from the distance. "The great Qin family has truly declined. Since when did he have to be so respectful to a young man?" What a joke. What did you say? When he heard this, Qin Changsheng was instantly enraged. The one who spoke, "Get the hell out here." Since the other party dared to challenge the great Qin family, they could not be forgiven. However, Elder Qin's expression changed. He pulled Qin Changsheng and said, "Don't mess around." The one who spoke was the Killer King, Nine Crown King. Furthermore, his methods were extremely cruel. Those who offended him were all mercilessly killed by him. There were even some who wished they were dead. Therefore, no one below the great emperor realm dared to offend him. So he was the Nine Crown King, the Killer King. Qin Changsheng also frowned. How could he not have heard of this person's name? This was the land of ice and fire. It was an extremely famous great demon. One must not provoke it. At this moment, laughter came from the distant palace. "What great Qin clan? I don't think he has the right to be here. Killer King, you don't have to do anything. If you don't like it, I'll kill them." Laughter came from beside the Killer King. It was obvious that this was his subordinate. The Killer King coldly snorted. "What is the great Qin clan? I can slap them to death with one hand. Now that I've reached the Nine Crown King's realm, I no longer have any opponents. I only yearn for the great emperor realm." After speaking, killing intent gathered on his body. It was like a mountain, pressing down on the great Qin clan. This killing intent was not enough to take a person's life, but it was enough to make the great Qin clan kneel on the ground. One had to know that countless experts, families, and sects were gathered in Sword City. Once the great Qin clan kneeled, it would be an eternal humiliation. Damn it, they were going too far. Qin Chongqing's eyes were red. The Fire Cloud Sword King also frowned. However, he did not say anything. This was because the Killer King was an expert who was stronger than him. In this world, the strong were respected. Lin Xian's gaze darkened because he realized that the other party's killing intent was also attacking him. It seemed to want him to kneel. He was courting death. He snorted coldly, and immediately, the killing intent that filled the sky shattered. Then, Lin Xian looked over. The light of reincarnation turned into a terrifying sword shadow that directly pierced through the clouds. In the opposite palace, a blood-curdling scream was heard. Immediately after, the sky was filled with killing intent. Then, with a bang, boundless laws spread out, and a cloud of blood mist drifted away. In that palace, countless people were terrified. Killer King, what happened to you? The Killer King was dead. What? The Killer King was dead? The experts in the surrounding palaces were all shocked. Impossible? The Killer King was the Nine-Crown King. Who could kill him? I didn't feel the aura of a great emperor just now. One soul after another probed into the area. However, when they discovered that the Killer King was really dead, these experts were all shocked. An expert was attacking. Everyone quickly withdrew their souls. They must not anger the other party. For a moment, the place was terrifyingly quiet. The great Qin clan's elders and the other members of the Qin clan looked at Lin Xian. Their faces were also filled with fear. Just now, it seemed that the other party was angry. Moreover, his body emitted an aura that directly flew to the distant palace. Then, the Killer King died. Could it be that it was this young man in front of them who killed him? They sucked in a cold breath. The other party killed the Nine-Crown King with a single glance. What kind of strength was this? This was the strength of a great emperor. This young man was actually a great emperor. No wonder the Fire Cloud Sword King would become his slave. No wonder Qin Chongqing said that the entire clan should not provoke him. It turned out that the other party really had such strength. Whoever offended a great emperor would end up worse than death. In Sword City, there were a few palaces floating in the air, and some great emperors were seated. These great emperors naturally knew what was happening outside. Among them, there were a few great emperors who frowned deeply. They also knew about the Killer King. If they wanted to kill him, they could do it with a single glance. However, they wouldn't do so, because this was Sword City, the territory of the Imperial Sword Villa. Making a move here was not giving the Imperial Sword Villa any face. These great emperors knew how powerful the Imperial Sword Villa was. Even they didn't dare to offend them easily. Who was it? These people were very curious. When did such an arrogant person come to the land of ice and fire? As for the Fire Cloud Sword King, he was even more respectful. Look, this was a real sword. A single glance was comparable to a divine weapon. When could he reach such a realm? The Killer King's death caused quite a bit of shock. The Imperial Sword Villa naturally knew about it. Jin Jingyun frowned deeply. Who was challenging them? However, he didn't make a move. Instead, he received a notice from the elder. Go, collect the Killer King's qi and blood. Although Jin Jingyun was puzzled, he still went to the palace. He took out a gourd and collected all the qi and blood floating in the air. Jin Jingyun didn't understand why he did this. However, he still quickly returned to the Imperial Sword Villa. The elder brought him to the back mountain. When he saw the Sword Emperor, Jin Jingyun hurriedly bowed. The Sword Emperor said, Next, let's try the power of this top sword spirit. Chapter 6157. Jin Jingyun was surprised. He didn't understand the power of a top-level sword spirit. He knew that a top-level sword spirit had appeared in the Imperial Sword Villa and countless people wanted it. But he had never seen it before. In the next moment, he saw it. In the cave, a sword shadow flew out and enveloped the gourd. The blood mist in the gourd flew out and gradually condensed into the appearance of the Killer King under the sword shadow. The Killer King was a skinny man, and one of his eyes was blind. Only the other eye was still fine. The other party was obviously a ruthless person. At this moment, the qi and blood condensed again. Was he alive? Jin Jingyun was stunned. A dead master was resurrected just like that? No, he wasn't alive. He just condensed his body, but his soul was gone. Greetings, Master. The new Killer King knelt at the feet of the Sword Emperor. How was this possible? Didn't he have no soul? How could he speak? How could he move? Jin Jingyun was completely stunned. The Sword Emperor laughed and said, Yuan, don't worry. This was the power of a sword spirit. The sword spirit controlled him. He was now a sword slave. Was this the power of a top-level sword spirit? Jin Jingyun was completely stunned. With such a sword spirit, the Imperial Sword Villa could make many powerful puppets. By then, who would be their match? Well, Yuan, take this puppet to the Sword City. Let those martial monarchs witness the power of our Imperial Sword Villa. Yes, Jin Jingyun was very excited. When the time came, those great emperors would probably be stunned. The Sword Emperor said coldly, Follow him. From now on, he is your young master. Yes. The Killer King stood up and left with Jin Jingyun. Jin Jingyun was incomparably excited. Although the Killer King's soul was already dead, he was still extremely excited. Although the Killer King's body was dead, the killing intent was still there. Even though he was the 8-crown king, his scalp was still numb. But fortunately, this body had completely surrendered to him. To be exact, it had surrendered to the sword spirit. Jin Jingyun left with the Killer King. But the Sword Emperor didn't leave the back mountain of the Imperial Sword Villa. He took out another gourd, which contained even more terrifying qi and blood. He said indifferently, Golden Palm Emperor, I didn't expect you to die. To be honest, I never thought of getting an Emperor Realm Sword Slave. However, since you're dead, you should obediently serve me. After saying those words, he waved his hand, and an even more terrifying aura appeared within the gourd. This was the blood of a great emperor. The entire manor was shaking. However, an even more terrifying sword chi rushed out of the Sword Monarch's body. The Sword Monarch's strength surpassed the Golden Palm Monarch's. Therefore, he was able to completely suppress the Golden Palm Monarch. With a wave of Zhang Xian's hand, the sword spirit flew back and began to forge a new emperor-level sword slave. When the elders in the distance saw this, they were extremely excited. If they really succeeded, then the strength of their Imperial Sword Villa in the future would be unimaginable. On the other side, 2 more figures appeared in Sword City. Jin Jingyun had returned. At the same time, he let out an extremely arrogant roar. This caused countless gazes to turn towards him. Someone asked, Jin Jingyun, has your Imperial Sword Villa opened? Did he invite us in? Jin Jingyun said, Seniors, please wait for a moment. The Imperial Sword Villa will officially open in 3 days. When the time comes, you can all go. After saying that, he ignored the crowd and directly walked forward. At the same time, another figure appeared behind him. This figure moved together with him. The surrounding people were stunned. That person looked familiar. Wait, wasn't he the Killer King? What Killer King? Stop joking. The Killer King had already died. He was killed by a mysterious expert in one move. How could he still be alive? That's right, that mysterious expert should also be a great emperor. Otherwise, how could he kill 9-crown king? When a great emperor attacked, there was nothing wrong. However, he really was the Killer King. In an instant, the news spread throughout the entire Sword City. The Killer King wasn't dead. He was alive again. Countless people came to see. The palace where the great Qin family was located also received the news. After Elder Qin walked over, he said, Do you know? The Killer King is alive. That's impossible. Qin Chongqing instantly jumped up. He knew of Lin Xian's strength. Lin Xian had killed a great emperor. No matter how strong the Killer King was, how could he be stronger than a great emperor? However, when Qin Chongqing saw the Killer King with his own eyes, he was stunned. He returned in a daze and came to Lin Xian's side. He said, He really came back to life. After Lin Xian heard this, he frowned and a light appeared in his eyes. He came back to life? How was that possible? In the next moment, His soul floated outside to investigate. Not only him, but the other great emperors also probed out their souls. Nanfeiyu exclaimed, "He really came back to life." Fire Wolf Emperor frowned. "What's going on?" Jin Jingyun, "What's going on? What's going on with the Killer King? Is it related to your Imperial Sword Villa?" In an instant, countless people were paying attention. Jin Jingyun smiled. "Greetings, Senior Fire Wolf." This time, he came with a mission. The Sword Emperor asked him to bring the Killer King here, not just to show off. There was something more important. He wanted to attract the attention of these people and then display the power of the sword spirit. At that time, these people would definitely be jealous and fight crazily. Once the battle started, no one would be able to control it. Several great emperors would fight, and there might even be great emperors who would fall. Even if there were no great emperors, he would take action and kill a few great emperors. This way, their imperial sword villa would be able to create a large number of sword slaves. They could even have a few more emperor-level sword slaves. At that time, the imperial sword villa was the most powerful giant in the land of ice and fire. No one dared to provoke them, and he could gather the power of the land of ice and fire and go to the other forbidden areas in the land of destiny to obtain treasures. Then, he could go to the Temple of Destiny again. The Sword Emperor's plan was perfect, and things would go according to plan step by step. Jin Jingyun said, "This is indeed related to our new sword spirit." What? The Killer King's resurrection was related to the sword spirit? Was it really related to the Imperial Sword Villa? Heavens! At this moment, everyone in the Sword City went crazy, and the eyes of the great emperors also burst out with a piercing light. Did the sword spirit have the ability to resurrect? Could he resurrect anyone? Even great emperors could do it? Was it resurrection? Or was it an illusion? Speak clearly, the Fire Wolf Emperor said coldly. Jin Jingyun smiled and said respectfully, "Senior great emperors, I don't know the details. Everyone, please calm down. 3 days later, you will know when you go to the Imperial Sword Villa." Humph! The Fire Wolf Emperor was angry. With a cold roar, the sky fell and the earth cracked. Jin Jingyun's expression changed drastically. He couldn't resist the anger of the great emperor. However, at this moment, a sword slashed over from the Imperial Sword Villa in the distance. It shattered the power that filled the sky. Chapter 6158. The people of the Imperial Sword Villa had made their move. Many people exclaimed. Jin Jingyun burst into laughter. With the Sword Emperor behind him, he was not afraid of anything. The Fire Wolf Emperor's face was also cold. He glanced at the villa in the distance and did not make another move. He was no match for the Sword Emperor. So, he waved his sleeve and snorted coldly. Nanfeiyu walked out and said with a smile, "It's just 3 days. In the blink of an eye, we can wait." The others were also talking about it. 3 days later, they must go to the Imperial Sword Villa. Investigate clearly. How did the dead come back to life? Jin Jingyun smiled and said, "Okay, then 3 days later, we respectfully invite you to the Imperial Sword Villa." As soon as he finished speaking, a cold voice came from the sky. "In less than 3 days, the dead don't need to appear again." As soon as Zhang Xian said those words, a flaming palm came crashing down from above. This palm was extremely terrifying. The flames on it seemed to be able to destroy the sky and the earth. Jin Jingyun was shocked. He retreated frantically. At the same time, he shouted angrily, "Who is it? Who dares to challenge the Imperial Sword Villa?" The rest of the people were also stunned. Was the great emperor making a move? However, the few great emperors were also at a loss. At this moment, an angry shout came from the Imperial Sword Villa in the distance. Then, a sword chi slashed over. Boom! That's great. Jin Jingyun was delighted. However, this time, the situation was different. The golden hand grabbed hold of the sword chi and smashed it downwards. It directly enveloped the King of Killers. There was a loud boom. The King of Killers was hit before he even had time to scream. In the next moment, his body turned into ashes. Not even a drop of blood was left. He was dead. Everyone was dumbfounded. They did not expect that someone would kill the king of killers in front of the imperial sword villa. What kind of method was this? What kind of courage was this? At this moment, countless people were shocked. Who was it? Jin Jingyun was also scared. Fortunately, he left. Otherwise, he would be the one dead now. He shouted angrily, "Who are you? How dare you go against the imperial sword villa? Do you want to die? Even the great emperor does not dare to challenge us here." In the sky, a cold voice rang out, "If I can kill him once, I can kill him a second time. I want to see how many times you can revive him." What? Kill him a second time? Could it be that this mysterious person was also the one who had made the move earlier? Who exactly was he? Jin Jingyun was also stunned. This was definitely a great emperor. He didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. Meanwhile, the other martial monarchs were curious. They immediately extended their souls to search for Qin Nan. However, at this moment, Lin Xian's voice rang in their ears. "Do you want to die?" He dared to check my trail. The great emperors felt their souls tremble. What terrifying strength! They hurriedly retracted their souls, not daring to probe further. "Disciple, come back." From the imperial sword villa's side, several sword chi rushed out and turned into a sword chi clone. This was a tall man surrounded by sword light. Countless people looked up at him. It was the sword emperor. No, it was the sword emperor's clone. "Master, someone is challenging us," Jin Jingyun hurriedly said. The sword emperor waved his hand and pulled him to his side. Then, he said, "Everyone, in 3 days, the imperial sword villa will open. I welcome you all." With that, he waved his sleeve and turned around to leave. He didn't fight? Could it be that the sword emperor was afraid? Or was there another reason? Everyone was surprised. One had to know that the sword emperor was in existence even more terrifying than the fire wolf emperor and the others. He was a peerless swordsman. One sword cut the sky, one sword cut the earth. No one was his match. But now, the sword emperor didn't make a move. This made countless people speculate. However, they could only wait 3 days to see the result. On the other side, in the Qin family's main hall, Lin Xian sat there again. Previously, it was naturally him who made the move. The king of killers was killed by him. How could he be revived? Now that the other party appeared, there must be something strange. However, he knew that it should be the imperial sword villa who made the move. Therefore, he directly killed him. 3 days later, he would go to the imperial sword villa and everything would be clear. Qin Changsheng said, "Is someone really revived?" Lin Xian shook his head. "Impossible. At least the imperial sword villa doesn't have this method." Previously, he used the power of reincarnation to destroy the other party's soul. How could the other party's soul be revived? Unless the other party also had the reincarnation sword. If that was the case, then it was not as simple as a sword spirit. Over at the imperial sword villa, Jin Jingyun knelt on one knee. "Master, I didn't do my job well. Please punish me." The sword emperor looked at him and shook his head. "It's not your fault. The person who made the move should be a great emperor. It's normal that you are no match for him." "Then, master, why didn't you make a move?" Jin Jingyun asked. He didn't think that the sword emperor was afraid of the other party. The sword emperor smiled. "Now is not the time. In 3 days, I will give these people a shock. Come here." With that, he waved his hand, and a figure flew over from afar. A terrifying divine fire erupted. When he saw this figure, Jin Jingyun's eyes almost popped out. The Golden Palm Emperor. He was stunned. He saw the Golden Palm Emperor being killed with his own eyes. How could he be alive? Could it be the same as the previous king of killers? The sword emperor said, "Yes, this great emperor's body is also our sword slave." Disciple, now you know how powerful this new sword spirit is, right? He can even control great emperors. It's fine if the great emperor who made the move today doesn't come in 3 days. If he dares to come in 3 days, I will turn him into a sword slave. Great, I can take revenge. Jin Jingyun was extremely excited. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, the people in the Sword City were all excited. They all set off for the Imperial Sword Villa. At this moment, The gate of the imperial sword villa was already open. Near the gate, there were countless disciples with long swords on their backs waiting. Jin Jingyun was even more outstanding, with an imposing appearance. Everyone, please. Jin Jingyun smiled and greeted those people. One by one, they were invited into the hall. However, when it was Nan Feiyu's turn, Nan Feiyu was angry. She stood in the void and looked down. She asked in a deep voice, "Only you? Your imperial sword villa is really rude. Are you the only one sent to welcome a great emperor?" Nan Feiyu didn't go in. The others were also discussing spiritedly. Indeed, the imperial sword villa was powerful and had the sword emperor. However, in addition to the sword emperor, there were other great emperors in the imperial sword villa. Even if the sword emperor didn't come out, he should have sent other great emperors to welcome him. After all, Nan Feiyu was also a supreme emperor. Jin Jingyun smiled. "Senior, don't be angry. I am not qualified to welcome you. It's someone else who will receive you." With that, he waved his hand. From the depths of the imperial sword villa, a golden light streaked across. Then, it turned into a figure and stood in front of the mountain gate. This figure was surrounded by golden light, especially his palms. There were divine flames dancing on them, and the sun, moon, and stars were rotating in them. Golden Palm Emperor, you are still alive. In the sky, Nan Feiyu was dumbfounded. In the distance, the Thunder Emperor also rushed over quickly. Chapter 61:59. Nan Feiyu was completely stunned. The man in front of him was the Golden Palm Emperor. How was that possible? She saw the Golden Palm Emperor being killed with her own eyes. Lei Dongdi was also dumbfounded. He was there too. The Fire Wolf Emperor and the others didn't go, but they also knew that a great emperor had died. They were still lamenting. The Golden Palm Emperor's strength was very strong, but how could he have been killed? What kind of being did he offend? They didn't expect to see the Golden Palm Emperor again. "You didn't die? How did you come back to life? Could it be that the Sword Villa really had the power to revive?" Nan Feiyu, Lei Dongdi, and the others landed and surrounded the Golden Palm Emperor. They quickly asked him, but the Golden Palm Emperor didn't say a word. Jin Jingyun said calmly, "Golden Palm, you're too unruly. Hurry up and invite the seniors in." Everyone was going crazy. Jin Jingyun didn't want to live anymore. How dare he order a great emperor around? Wasn't he afraid of being slapped to death? Everyone below the great emperor was an ant. Even if Jin Jingyun was a sword genius, the Eight-Crown King, so what? He was still weak in the eyes of a great emperor. As expected, Nan Feiyu, Lei Dongdi, and the others' eyes were filled with killing intent. They stared at Jingyun with hostility. But at this moment, the Golden Palm Emperor bowed slightly and said, "Young master, you're right. I'll invite them in now." What was going on? Everyone was thunderstruck by this scene. Heavens, a great emperor has become a slave? He lowered his head to the Eight-Crown King. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. Jin Jingyun was so excited. He clenched his fists and wanted to laugh at the sky. Ha ha ha, it felt so good. Everyone's goal was to become a great emperor, because becoming a great emperor could surpass the heavens and earth and be admired by thousands. But so what? A great emperor obeyed his orders. If he told them to go east, they wouldn't dare to go west. This feeling made him feel as if he had become an unparalleled overlord. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. Just you wait. Sooner or later, all of you emperors will have to listen to my orders. Jin Jingyun was very arrogant now. What exactly happened? Nan Feiyu grabbed the Golden Palm Emperor's hand and asked. The other great emperors also fixed their gazes on the other party. Had he become a puppet? Was his soul being controlled? Or could it be that after his rebirth, some unknown situation had occurred? They studied it closely. However, he still didn't find anything. The great emperor's faces darkened because the imperial sword villa was becoming more and more mysterious. Do they still want to go in? If the other party really did possess the power of an emperor sovereign, what would they do? Hesitation appeared in their eyes. Seeing this, Jin Jingyun's lips curled up. So what if you're a great emperor? Yesterday you looked down on me. Today, I will step on you. Seniors, why aren't you going? Aren't you curious? He gloated. Brat, who allowed you to talk to me like this? The Thunder Emperor harumphed coldly. Two thunderbolts leaped out from his eyes as he charged toward Jian Jingyun. Jian Jingyun jumped in fright. He had no time to dodge. Fortunately, the Golden Palm Emperor reached out his hand and caught the two lightning bolts. He came to Jian Jingyun and said, Don't hurt the young master. Golden Palm, are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing? He's just an 8-crown king, an ant. The Thunder Emperor roared. However, the Golden Palm Emperor was unmoved. The others were discussing spiritedly. They didn't understand why the great emperor would lower his head to the imperial sword villa. However, at this moment, another group of people came from the distance. They were from the Great Qin family. However, the person at the front wasn't from the Great Qin family, but Lin Xian. The Great Qin family people said, There seems to be a change in front. The Golden Palm Emperor is alive. He's alive again? Qin Chongqing and the elders of the Qin family were shocked. The Killer King was resurrected. Now, even the Golden Palm Emperor was resurrected? It was unbelievable. What kind of secret did the Imperial Sword Villa have? Lin Xian's eyes shone with a cold light. To be able to revive the arch? Interesting. I want to see what kind of power it is. He sped up. Qin Chongqing asked, Big brother, you killed him last time. Can you kill him again this time? Hearing this, the Qin family experts' eyelids twitched. What did he mean? They knew that Lin Xian killed the Killer King, but did he kill the Golden Palm Emperor too? What kind of joke was this? Since when were great emperors so easy to kill? It was very difficult for a great emperor to fall in a battle of the same level. Even if a great emperor was besieged and severely injured, however, it wasn't easy to die. The Golden Palm Emperor's death had caused a huge commotion. It had been tens of thousands of years since a great emperor had died. Lin Xian said indifferently, If I can kill him once, I can kill him again. Let's see what's going on first. He said it so casually, but the Qin family people felt a headache coming on. Did this guy really kill the Golden Palm Emperor? Wait, could it be that he was the mysterious person who killed the Golden Palm Emperor? Thinking of this, the Qin family people almost knelt on the ground. Back then, several great emperors besieged the divine item that fell from the sky. They saw the mysterious figure in the crystal. He defeated the great emperors, killed the Golden Palm Emperor, and swallowed 3,000 dragon veins. Everything that happened was like a legend. Could it be that the young man in front of him was the one who did it? If so, the Imperial Sword Villa would be shrouded in a storm this time. The Thunder Emperor and the others were still confronting the Golden Palm Emperor. The Golden Palm Emperor's aura became more and more terrifying. A pair of golden palms seemed to be able to split the sky and earth. Not only that, the other party seemed to have a kind of sharpness of sword qi. The Thunder Emperor and the others frowned. At this moment, the crowd behind them dispersed. Qin Chongqing shouted, Get out of the way! Get out of the way! My big brother is here! Who was so arrogant? How dare he be so presumptuous in front of a great emperor? It was Qin Chongqing. So it was him, this guy who was courting death. When did Qin Chongqing have a big brother? Wasn't this guy afraid of nothing? All kinds of discussions came. Even the martial monarchs frowned and glanced at him coldly. However, at this moment, the Golden Palm Emperor roared. Suddenly, a strong killing intent was released from his eyes. Instantly, the sky fell and the earth cracked. The surrounding people were frightened and quickly retreated. The great emperors were also stunned. Jian Jingyun was sent flying by the killing intent, and he was vomiting blood. Was he crazy? What was going on with the Golden Palm Emperor? Just as everyone was confused, the Golden Palm Emperor suddenly rushed forward. He was attacking the great Qin family. Could it be Qin Chongqing, this reckless guy who had offended him? It was over. This guy was really going to die this time. The Qin family people were in despair. Under the power of a great emperor, they kept retreating. Everyone was about to kneel on the ground. However, at this moment, Lin Xian took a step forward and looked at the great emperor in front of him. He said calmly, Kneel. Chapter 6160. At this moment of crisis, Lin Xian stood up and said, "Kneel down." Everyone went crazy. Even if he was courting death, he shouldn't have done this. He would die without a burial place. One had to know that even if Jian Jingyun was so arrogant, he only dared to order the great emperor. Jian Jingyun wouldn't dare to make the great emperor kneel down. However, this kid in front of him made the great emperor kneel down. He was even more courting death than Qin Changsheng. On the other hand, the Golden Palm Emperor trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. A wave of fear came from the depths of his body. His body seemed to be out of control. With a plop, he knelt on the ground. Boom! The ground was shattered into pieces, resulting in huge cracks and dust flying into the air. However, everyone couldn't care less about this. Their eyes were about to pop out. The Golden Palm Emperor actually knelt down. This scene was like a dream. The surrounding top families and sects, even the Imperial Sword Villa, Nanfeiyu, and other great emperors gasped. Everyone's mind was blank. That was a great emperor, a supreme existence that surpassed heaven and earth. Those below the great emperor were all ants. Those above the great emperor were immortals. Such a terrifying master actually knelt down in front of a strange young man. They couldn't believe it. In the distance, Jian Jingyun was also trembling in fear. How was this possible? How was this possible? He was someone who knew the inside story. Although the Golden Palm Emperor wasn't resurrected, he was controlled by the sword spirit and restored his body. However, he shouldn't have knelt down. One had to know that the other party was different from the Killer King. The other party was a true great emperor. Even if he was dead, the great emperor's body and bloodline were still there. Even the sword emperor couldn't make the Golden Palm Emperor kneel. However, this kid in front of him did it easily. Could it be that this kid was stronger than the sword emperor? This was impossible. Thinking of this, Jian Jingyun shook his head frantically. Lin Xian looked at the other party. There was a cold light in his eyes. Just you? Do you think it's possible to attack me? Also, even though your body is yours, your soul isn't. Who exactly are you? Lin Xian seemed to have transformed into a supreme ruler, looking down on the Golden Palm Emperor. The Golden Palm Emperor's body trembled. In his mind, the power of the sword spirit began to sway. Let me see, what exactly are you? In Lin Xian's eyes, the light of reincarnation shone brightly and enveloped the Golden Palm Emperor. The sword spirit was frightened and let out a scream. Then, it turned into a ray of light and flew into the Imperial Sword Villa. As soon as the sword spirit left, the Golden Palm Emperor's body fell to the ground with a loud thud. What's going on? The surrounding people were dumbfounded. The great emperors furrowed their brows tightly. That sword energy was so strange. It had rushed out of the Golden Palm Emperor's soul. Could it be that this thing was controlling the Golden Palm Martial Monarch? However, as soon as that thing left, the Golden Palm Emperor's life force disappeared. Although there was still chi and blood, there were no signs of life. This meant that the Golden Palm Emperor only had his body left. His soul had long disappeared. Strange, it was just too strange. The Imperial Sword Villa had a supreme secret. The people of the Imperial Sword Villa were scared silly. The sword spirit was frightened. At this moment, an old man rushed out and shouted, "How dare you? Do you dare to go against the Imperial Sword Villa?" The person who came out was the first elder of the Imperial Sword Villa. He was also a great emperor. His angry roar shook the earth and mountains. The people of the Imperial Sword Villa also roared. Jian Jingyun even walked out. He pulled out his long sword and said, "Brothers, follow me to kill the enemy." Kill. Thousands of swordsmen pulled out their long swords. Their murderous aura soared into the sky. The terrifying sword intent made the surrounding people's scalps tingle. For a moment, everyone retreated. Was a great battle about to break out? Someone said. They had no choice. They had been slapped in the face in front of the Imperial Sword Villa. If they didn't fight back, the Imperial Sword Villa would lose all their face. They wouldn't have the face to come out in the future. Just you? Lin Xian looked at these swordsmen with a trace of disdain in his eyes. Although he couldn't use his immortal power easily, and he was still injured, he wasn't someone these people could challenge. Lin Xian snorted and was about to attack. However, at this moment, the Fire Wolf Emperor exclaimed, "It's you, Nan Feiyu," and the others were stunned. "What's going on? You know him?" The Fire Wolf Emperor didn't say anything. Instead, he walked to the front and bowed deeply. "So it's young master. I didn't recognize you before. Please forgive me. Greetings, young master." The Vermilion Bird Emperor walked out and bowed deeply. "Greetings, young master. Greetings, young master." The three great emperors bowed, and their voices shook the world. For a moment, countless people were stunned. Even the first elder of the Imperial Sword Villa felt as if he had been struck by lightning. "Why are you three doing this? Do you want to go against our Imperial Sword Villa too?" The Fire Wolf Emperor snorted coldly. "Stupid. How can you compare to young master's strength? Giant sword. I advise you to back off. Your Imperial Sword Villa is no match for him." The first elder was known as the Giant Sword Emperor. He was furious. "Not a match? Him? If you don't protect him, I can kill him with one strike." The Fire Wolf Emperor and the others shook their heads. They felt that the Giant Sword Emperor was too arrogant. They had already recognized Lin Xian. Wasn't this the mysterious youth who had appeared in the Fiery God Tree's territory? He was someone who had entered the depths of the Fiery God Tree's territory and spoken directly with the Fiery God Tree. One had to know that even if the three great emperors joined forces, they wouldn't be able to fight against the Fiery God Tree. However, this youth could. He had walked out of the Fiery God Tree's territory unscathed. This meant that even the Fiery God Tree was wary of this youth's strength. Such a person wasn't someone the Giant Sword Emperor could challenge. However, the Giant Sword Emperor didn't know that. The first elder of the Imperial Sword Villa snorted coldly. He waved his hand, and a giant sword appeared in the air. It was a giant black sword that was as heavy as a mountain. With a light swing, it could shatter heaven and earth. "Kid, do you dare to take one strike from me?" The first elder held the sword in his hand, and a violent energy exploded from his body. His sword energy soared into the sky, as if he didn't care about anyone. Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back. He said calmly, You're no match for me." Arrogant. The first elder was enraged. He waved the giant black sword and slashed down. With one slash, the biting cold sword energy swept across heaven and earth. This strike was enough to cut down the sun, moon, and stars. The surrounding people all frantically retreated. The Thunder Emperor was shocked. This old man had become stronger again. The Imperial Sword Villa swordsmen were truly terrifying. Everyone started to worry for Lin Xian. Would this guy be able to withstand it? The Fire Cloud Sword Emperor clenched his fists. To be honest, he wasn't confident either. He knew that Lin Xian was strong, but the Giant Sword Emperor was even more terrifying. This strike made him despair. This was a true peerless swordsman. Could his master block it? Only Qin Changsheng was chuckling as he watched the show. He said in his heart, "Just you wait. You'll all be scared silly. And this Giant Sword Emperor will definitely meet a tragic end." Chapter 61-61. In the face of such a terrifying sword, Lin Xian stood there without any intention of dodging. There was a loud boom. This sword slashed Lin Xian's body. "Great. Go to hell, kid." The Giant Sword Emperor revealed a cruel smile. However, in the next moment, he was stunned. His pupils shrank. That was because he discovered that although his sword strike had caused sparks to fly, his opponent's body was completely unharmed. The opponent blocked this sword. How was this possible? The Giant Sword Emperor couldn't believe it. What kind of physique was this? Even a great emperor of the same level wouldn't dare to face this sword head-on, right? He would definitely be injured. "Is this all you've got?" Lin Xian looked up at the opponent and shook his head slightly. "Weak, too weak. You are not qualified to make me use my sword." After saying that, he threw out a punch. Boom. This punch landed on the Great Elder's shoulder. Half of the Great Elder's shoulder cracked as if he was struck by lightning. His whole body flew out like a meteorite. With a boom, The mountain gate of the imperial sword villa was shattered. Between heaven and earth, there were countless cracks and storms. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This scene was too sudden. In their opinion, the one who should lose should be Lin Xian. However, who would have thought that not only was Lin Xian not injured, but he also injured a great emperor with a light punch? How is this possible? The people of the imperial sword villa were stunned. Nan Feiyu, Thunder Emperor, and the others were also shocked. Qin Changshen clapped his hands and laughed. See? The surprised expressions of these people are enough to make me happy for a few days. Everyone said that I was courting death. I think the imperial sword villa is the one courting death. They even dared to challenge my big brother. Thinking of this, he rushed over and shouted, "Big brother is mighty. Big brother is powerful. What giant sword emperor? I think you are even worse than trash. My big brother hasn't used his sword yet, and you can't hold on. If my big brother uses his sword, I think your sword emperor can't resist. By the way, your imperial sword villa is not qualified to use the title of sword emperor. Ask your villa master to give it up. Only my big brother is qualified to use it." Between heaven and earth, only Qin Changsheng's voice sounded. The surrounding people were stunned. Was this guy out to court death again? The imperial sword villa would definitely not forgive the other party. As for the Firecloud sword monarch, he was so excited that he started trembling. Master's strength is so terrifying. Master is the true, unparalleled expert. He was going to follow his master for the rest of his life. At the same time, he looked down on immortal Qin greatly. He disdained flattery and the actions of a villain. He wanted to use his true strength and talent to win his master's attention. Lin Xian, who was in front, glanced indifferently at Qin Changsheng. After that, he took out 2 heavenly treasures from his storage room and tossed them to the other party. Qin Changsheng immediately obtained it, and his eyes curved into crescents. "Many thanks, big brother." What is this thing? What a powerful law aura. Why have I never seen it before? This isn't something from the land of ice and fire, right? Big brother, you're too amazing. Immortal Qin was crazily excited. The surrounding people also widened their eyes. Even the eyes of the martial monarchs flickered. Indeed, they had never seen anything like this before. At this moment, they even had a thought. Should they film a few lines as well? You. Who are you? The great elder in front stood up. Immortal energy surrounded his body, healing his broken body. His eyes were fixed on Lin Xian. When? Such a terrifying young martial monarch came from the land of ice and fire? How come they had never heard of him? Lin Xian walked forward with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, You don't have the right to know who I am. Let your sword emperor come. Also, hand over your sword villa's sword spirit. In your dreams. The great elder roared angrily. He held the giant sword again and charged over. I was careless just now. Now, I won't make such a mistake again. He roared crazily and attacked forcefully. Boom, boom. The two collided, and the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. After a few punches, the great elder fell to the ground, and many cracks appeared on his body. Some places were directly pierced through, and many of the bones in his body were broken. The immortal energy on his body had dimmed. Lin Xian stepped on the other party's body with one foot. At the same time, he looked into the distance. He said indifferently, Come out, I can sense your aura. He is no match for me at all. If you don't come out, I will kill him. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Even the first elder began to tremble. Was the other party going to kill him? Before, he didn't believe it. As a martial monarch, he would never die so easily. But now, he didn't dare to try, because the other party could easily crush him. The other party seemed to have the strength to kill him. He could only say, Please make a move, Sword Emperor. Humph. I didn't expect that a young man like you would appear in the land of ice and fire. A loud voice came from the Imperial Sword Villa. Then, countless sword chi flew over. They covered the sky and the earth, sweeping across the sky. Among them, a few sword chi directly enveloped the first elder and brought him back. Lin Xian didn't stop them. He just watched quietly like that. In the next moment, he saw countless sword chi turn into a divine bridge, standing between heaven and earth. And on that divine bridge, a figure actually walked out. It was a man in white. He stood there, surrounded by 3,000 sword lights, bobbing up and down around him. Each sword light seemed to be able to pierce through heaven and earth. Greetings, Sword Emperor. Jian Jingyun and the others from the Imperial Sword Villa quickly knelt down. The Sword Emperor stood between heaven and earth, his face extremely cold. He was very angry because the other party had ruined his plan. According to his plan, this time, the great emperors and the top families and sects would all come. He would show them the mysterious power of the sword spirit and let them fight each other. He could sit back and reap the benefits. But now, a mysterious young man had appeared. With one sentence, he made the Golden Palm Emperor kneel. With one punch, he injured the Giant Sword Emperor. Even the Fire Wolf Emperor, the Vermilion Bird Emperor, and the others lowered their heads. This young man was too sharp, and no one dared to compete with him. In this way, how could he reap the benefits? Therefore, the Sword Emperor was very angry. He had to get rid of this kid first. Thinking of this, he looked at Lin Xian. Then, his brows furrowed even tighter. This kid was so strange. The other party stood there and didn't seem to release any terrifying aura. One had to know that great emperors all had immortal qi and divine fire. Even in the land of destiny, these were the two paths that everyone had chosen. But the other party didn't have the power of immortal qi or divine fire. What was going on? Could it be that the other party wasn't a great emperor? But that was even more impossible. If he wasn't a great emperor, how could he injure a great emperor so easily? What kind of joke was this? Even Ten Crown King might not have such power, right? Although Ten Crown King was strong, he could only contend with a great emperor, which was already very heaven-defying. If Ten Crown King wanted to kill a great emperor, it would be as difficult as ascending to the sky. It definitely wouldn't be so easy. The Sword Emperor couldn't understand. Lin Xian said indifferently, "You're the Sword Emperor? I'll give you a chance. Hand over the sword spirit. You can't keep it." How arrogant. The Sword Emperor was angry. The other party wanted to snatch the sword spirit as soon as he came up. Was he not putting him in his eyes at all? Chapter 61-62. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the Sword Emperor was completely enraged. His eyes burst out with a biting cold killing intent. "It seems that you really don't know what's good for you. Do you know? No one dares to challenge me in this land of ice and fire. Look at the Fire Wolf Emperor and the other great emperors. Do they dare to challenge me? They don't dare because I'm strong. Even in the land of the Ice Dragon and the Fire God Tree, they don't dare to fight me easily. I want to know, what gives you the right? Because I'm strong, because my strength is above yours." Lin Xian's eyes also burst out with a biting cold light. "Take out your sword. I want to know, are you worthy of the title of Sword Emperor?" The Sword Emperor laughed. He seemed to laugh with disdain. The next moment, he said coldly, "I haven't drawn my sword for 140 years. But that's fine. Today, I'll let you die under my sword." With a wave of his hand, the void split open. An ancient treasure sword appeared between heaven and earth. The Sword Emperor grabbed it. In the next moment, endless sword light burst out from his body. Terrifying sword Dao immortal chi floated around him. At this moment, everyone's weapons kept shaking, as if they were worshipping the king. Retreat. The surrounding people all retreated. For example, the Fire Wolf Emperor, the Vermilion Bird Emperor, and the others frowned. They wondered how this battle would go. Although they knew that Lin Xian was powerful, the Sword Emperor was too terrifying. The other party hadn't drawn his sword for 140 years. However, in these 140 years, the other party had defeated several great emperors with his bare hands. His strength had reached an unimaginable level. Now, this sword had been nurtured for 140 years. Once it was drawn, it would probably shock heaven and earth and make ghosts and gods cry. "Master!" In the distance, the Fire Cloud Sword Emperor's body was already pressed to the ground. He had no choice. In front of the Sword Emperor, he couldn't resist at all. At this moment, he was very worried for Lin Xian. On the other side, Qin Changsheng also dug a hole and burrowed into the ground. He muttered, "This guy should be able to withstand it." Everyone was guessing, but they felt that Lin Xian's chances of winning weren't high. On the Imperial Sword Villa's side, countless people laughed. "Great! The Sword Emperor is angry." The Sword Emperor was about to draw his sword. He would definitely be able to kill the other party in one move. Lin Xian also withdrew his smile as a mysterious glow blossomed in his eyes. One had to admit that the other party was indeed very strong. His sword Dao Immortal Qi was extremely terrifying. From the looks of it, he had met an interesting opponent. Very good. I'm finally not alone on the path of Sword Dao. What were experts most afraid of? Lonely, ah. It is lonely at the top. In fact, there was not even a single person capable of fighting him. Lin Xian rarely met a worthy opponent on the path of the sword. Now that he had met one, he naturally would not miss it. With a wave of his hand, the 9 suns' divine fire gathered in his hand and turned into a sword aura. Boom! The power of the purest yang erupted as countless divine flames swept across the 9 heavens. The entire world began to shake. It was as if this flaming divine sword could split the heavens and earth apart. What terrifying power! The surrounding people were shocked again. This young man was also a swordsman, and it seemed that he was also a super swordsman. It was too unbelievable. The Fire Wolf Emperor, Vermilion Bird Emperor, and the others were also dumbfounded. Previously, they had seen Lin Xian at the Fiery Divine Trees territory. However, at that time, Lin Xian had used his powerful physique to intimidate them. Who would have thought that other than his powerful physique, he would be able to display such a peerless sword intent? How could this guy be so strong? The people of the Imperial Sword Villa could no longer laugh. Especially Jin Jingyun, who was already trembling in fear. The First Elder's face was also very dark. Even the Sword Emperor had put away his contemptuous smile. For the first time, a serious look appeared in his eyes. That's right, he had been careless. Previously, he had thought that he would be able to kill his opponent in one move. However, when his opponent attacked with his sword, he realized that this was not the case at all. This young man's strength was probably beyond his imagination. This was a powerful opponent. He put away his contempt, and in the next moment, his right hand grasped the ancient sword's hilt. He said, "So you are also a swordsman, and a top-notch one at that. I underestimated you before. Don't worry, I won't underestimate you again. I will use my full strength to defeat you in Sword Dao. Even if you use your full strength, you won't be my match." Lin Xian became even more arrogant at this moment. He was like a peerless sword god, his entire body emitting a bright light. Then, he attacked with his sword. Boom! The 9 Yang Divine sword pressed down from the sky, shattering the entire world. The power to split heaven and earth exploded. Facing this sword, the Sword Emperor did not retreat. Instead, his body swayed and turned into a bolt of lightning. He rushed over. When he arrived in front of Lin Xian, he still did not attack, because the 9 Yang Divine sword above his head had already enveloped him. He roared angrily, and his body swayed again. He dodged this sword and arrived beside Lin Xian. In the next moment, he drew his sword. An earth-shattering sound rang out like a clap of thunder. The ancient sword was unsheathed. This was just an ordinary drawing of the sword that could not be any more ordinary. However, its power was extremely extraordinary. It even caused the Fire Wolf Emperor and the others' minds to go blank. If they were to face this sword, they would probably be cut in half. This was the power that had been accumulated for 140 years. A sword shadow slashed towards Lin Xian. "Destroy!" The Sword Emperor roared. Its speed was so fast that it was unbelievable. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. The sky and earth in front of them shattered, turning into countless black holes. Was he hit? Everyone raised their heads to look. The people of the Imperial Sword Villa clenched their fists. If they were hit, no matter how strong the other party was, they would be cut in half. Even if they didn't die, they would be seriously injured. However, the Sword Emperor's exclamation came from the black hole in front of them. "How is this possible? You blocked it?" He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. The sword drawing just now had accumulated 140 years of power. It was enough to shock the world and make ghosts and gods cry. However, it did not hit the other party's body because another sword shadow appeared in the other party's hand. He blocked this sword. You're not bad. Your sword technique is one of the few top-notch swordsmen I've met. Lin Xian nodded and said. He was acknowledging the other party. However, the Sword Emperor was furious. He was much older than Feng Ke. He would not allow a young junior to be so arrogant. Go to hell, Sword Dao shocking thunder. Countless thunderbolts suddenly appeared on the ancient sword. Then, it cracked with a loud bang. A violent and destructive force swept forward. Great, it was an immortal method. Zhuang Jin Jingyun, the first elder, and the others exclaimed. The Sword Emperor even used an immortal method. The other party should be dead this time, right? I have a sword that can split the sky. In the shattering thunder, a long roar sounded. Then, everyone saw that the thunder clouds in the sky were split open, and a golden holy sword slashed down from the sky. Boom! This sword hit the ancient sword and knocked the Sword Emperor back. The Sword Emperor kept retreating, stepping on the void. His blood was boiling, and his face was full of disbelief. Above the ninth heaven, Lin Xian stepped on the 8 barren lands. He pointed his sword down and said, Is this all you've got? Not enough. Lin Xian shook his head. I haven't used my real sword technique yet. Are you going to be defeated? Come again. After that, he slashed down with his sword. Chapter 61-63. You will regret this. The sword monarch snorted. He was furious. Was the other party looking down on him? Although he didn't have the upper hand in the previous 2 strikes. But so what? He also had a peerless sword technique that he hadn't used yet. Sword technique, Mountain River Sword. He waved his ancient sword again, and it turned into mountains and rivers. They overlapped and pressed down like thousands of mountains and rivers. This was a vast sword intent. Even if a great emperor was enveloped in it, he would be crushed by this huge pressure. Good, this is worthy of the title of Sword Monarch. Lin Xian laughed heartily as he sensed the immense might of the sword. He didn't dodge. Instead, he took the initiative to enter the mountains and rivers. His body also began to shake violently. Below, Nan Feiyu and the other great emperors were stunned. Others couldn't dodge this move in time, but he took the initiative to enter. How confident was he? The sword monarch snorted. He activated the Mountain River Sword and pressed down. This time, he must definitely suppress the other party. Looking at the mountains and rivers formed by the sword chi, Lin Xian snorted. In the next moment, he waved the sword in his hand again. Heaven-defying sword technique, Mountain River Sword. The sword in the air flashed, and the mountains and rivers were cut in half like a piece of paper. All kinds of heaven and earth avatars collapsed, and a terrifying power swept around. The few great emperors took their people and retreated frantically. The front was already in ruins. Was the immortal technique broken? This guy was too strong. The sword monarch might have to bow down to him. Lei Dongdi shook his head and sighed. Nan Feiyu and the others were also in a daze. They didn't dare to imagine that the sword monarch would be defeated. The sword monarch was really the uncrowned king in this space. It seemed that he hadn't been defeated before. While the great emperors were talking, Lin Xian's second strike had already arrived. The first strike shattered the mountains and rivers. The second strike split heaven and earth. The sword in the air slashed towards the sword monarch. This time, the sword monarch didn't dare to be careless. He kept dodging and even took the initiative to activate his defense. He waved the ancient sword in his hand, and a 3-foot sword light surrounded him, forming a huge sword screen. Boom, boom, boom. The sword that could split heaven and earth slashed on the sword screen, causing a loud explosion. This time, the sword screen didn't shatter immediately. Instead, it lasted for a while. Only when it was covered with cracks did it shatter. The Sword Emperor took this opportunity to leave. Lin Xian was surprised. What a strong sword intent. The Sword Emperor was much stronger than expected in terms of sword Dao. Lin Xian did not continue to attack. Instead, he said, "It's not easy for you to cultivate to this level." Furthermore, one had to accept their fate in the land of destiny. Once one was defeated, it would be difficult for them to make a comeback. Indeed, in the outside world, the great emperor had thousands of possibilities. However, things were different in the land of destiny. "I will not be defeated." The sword emperor roared and attacked again. "Take my strongest attack. I learned this move a few years ago, but I've never used it before. Originally, I thought that I would only be able to use this move in extremely dangerous forbidden lands. I never thought that I would have to use it on you today. However, you should be proud of yourself." The sword emperor's aura changed again. The ancient sword in his hand swayed non-stop, emitting a dazzling sword light. Then, he continued to step in the air. After taking the first step, he reached a certain height. The ancient sword in his hand was shining like the sun, stepping on the sky and killing gods. The name of this move was extremely arrogant. It was said that it could even kill gods. Everyone looked up. The weak ones knelt down and surrendered. Even the martial monarchs began to tremble. They felt a sense of horror, a horror that came from the depths of their souls. All of this seemed to be able to kill them. The first elder looked up at the sky with excitement in his eyes. He did it. He actually mastered the legendary stepping on the sky and killing gods. Jin Jingyun and the other disciples on the side swallowed their saliva. Was this the legendary sword technique? They didn't dare to imagine. Even Lin Xian looked up with a touch of seriousness in his eyes. This move was indeed very powerful. It even threatened him. Stepping on the sky and killing gods? Lin Xian's eyes also showed a touch of coldness. "I'm afraid you won't be able to kill it." The sword emperor in the sky was extremely focused. He held the ancient sword with both hands and swung it down fiercely. Between heaven and earth, countless sword chi danced as if it had turned into a sword Tao world. As the sword slashed down, the sky shattered and the earth turned into countless black holes. Heaven-defying sword technique. "I am the sword." The sword chi in Lin Xian's hand disappeared. He directly rushed over. At this moment, his body was shining brightly as if he had turned into a peerless divine sword. He pierced through heaven and earth, straight into the clouds, and charged towards the ancient sword in the sky. Everyone's expression changed. This was the strongest move. It was about to determine the winner. The great emperors widened their eyes. They couldn't bear to miss any detail. With a boom, the two sides collided. Countless runes flashed in all directions. Between heaven and earth, there were tens of thousands of cracks shaking. This move seemed to have turned into eternity. Everyone's eyes lit up. The great emperors were so dazzled that their eyes bled. They didn't dare to look anymore. How was this possible? The two of them could unleash such powerful sword intent. Everyone could only wait. After an unknown period of time, everyone heard a cracking sound coming from the void. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Something had broken. What was it? Whoosh. Boom. Then, in the sky full of white light, a black figure descended from the sky and landed on the ground at an extremely fast speed. With a clang, the ground was penetrated. The great emperors hurriedly looked over. Then, they exclaimed, "Broken sword." This seemed to be the sword emperor's ancient sword. Was it broken? The first elder of the imperial sword villa also roared crazily. This was impossible. How could the sword emperor's ancient sword be broken? That was an extremely terrifying extreme Tao weapon. The sword emperor had been looking for the metal to forge it for 3,000 years. This long sword had followed the sword emperor for 10,000 years. It was definitely a divine weapon. However, at this moment, it was broken. Boom boom. In the sky, there was another earth-shattering sound. Then, the two figures separated. Lin Xian stood there. His body was shining brightly. He wasn't injured at all. On the other hand, the sword emperor was half kneeling in the void. He held the broken sword in his hand. His hair was disheveled, and blood kept dripping from the corner of his mouth. Every drop of blood could shatter eternity. "You lost," Lin Xian said indifferently. "Lost." A trace of confusion appeared in the sword emperor's eyes. He was actually defeated. Moreover, he was defeated in the sword Tao. He had lived for tens of thousands of years. He didn't expect that he would be defeated in the hands of a young man. Once upon a time, he traveled the world with his sword and defeated countless heaven's favorites with his sword alone. In the end, he entered the great emperor realm with the supreme sword Tao. After entering the great emperor realm, he was still victorious. Many great emperors were defeated by his ancient sword. He had created so many glories and legends in his life. However, at this moment, it seemed that everything had turned into ashes. Even the ancient sword that had followed him for 10,000 years had been broken into two. Hate, I hate. The Sword Emperor's eyes suddenly burst out with monstrous killing intent. He stood up and roared to the sky. My sword is broken, but I haven't lost yet. Sword Spirit, come out. Chapter 61-64. With an angry roar, a large amount of sword chi suddenly surged out from the Imperial Sword Villa. Then, a sword shadow rushed over like a peerless immortal light. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. Their souls seemed to be about to be extinguished. What was this? The few great emperors were also facing a great enemy. They looked carefully and saw that beside the Sword Emperor, an illusory sword shadow had already appeared. It surrounded him and danced. Sword Spirit, someone exclaimed. The few great emperors also stared ahead. This time, they came for the Sword Spirit. Now that the Sword Spirit had appeared, no one dared to act rashly. Previously, it might have been possible for them to join forces to fight against the Sword Emperor. But now, another young sword god had appeared and defeated the Sword Emperor. And the other party's goal was also the Sword Spirit. At this moment, those great emperors didn't dare to. If they offended this young sword god, they would probably end up in a miserable state. Of course, there were also people whose eyes flickered. They thought that since there was a fierce battle ahead, let them fight. Perhaps in the end, both sides would suffer. In that case, they would have a chance. Lin Xian also looked ahead and looked at the illusory sword shadow. He was surprised. Was this the Sword Spirit? He thought of the Dragon Sword Spirit. However, at this moment, the Dragon Sword Spirit was not in his hands, but in the hands of the mysterious powerhouse, Xian Yuan. Back then, when he was confirming his Tao, a peerless battle occurred. Xian Yuan came out. The shadows of the heaven-devouring Great Emperor and Celestial Emperor Yi also appeared one after another. The Dragon Sword went to the 9 heavens and fought with the other party. And before the battle ended, Lin Xian was teleported to the land of destiny. He didn't bring the Dragon Sword Spirit with him. However, he wasn't worried. Once he returned to the myriad worlds, the Dragon Sword Spirit would return to his side. Now, even without the great Dragon Sword Soul, Lin Xian's body was filled with an invincible power. The Sword Emperor's eyes once again regained his confidence. He had lost, but so what? He still had the Sword Spirit. Now, with the power of this top Sword Spirit, he could turn defeat into victory. One failure might allow him to experience a different life. This failure would turn into his eternal motivation. Only the one who had the last laugh would be considered a success. The Sword Monarch felt that he was the one who had the last laugh. With a wave of his hand, the Sword Spirit revolved around his hand. The battle wasn't over yet. After saying that, he slashed out with his sword. Buzz. Lin Xian's body emitted tens of thousands of sword energies. 10,000 swords returned to sect. He was like the sword god of the 9th heaven. The sword chi on his body blocked the Sword Spirit's attack. At the same time, a trace of reincarnation power was activated in his eyes. Your Sword Spirit is very strange. I can actually sense a trace of the power of reincarnation. Could it be that the land of destiny had the power of reincarnation? Thinking of this, Lin Xian was a little excited. It should be known that although he could summon the phantom of the Samsara sword, he could not summon it. However, it was said that the body of the Samsara sword had been shattered. There was a palm-sized fragment in his hand. It was possible that there were other fragments in this fated place, and this sword spirit should be the key. Thinking of this, a cold light erupted from his eyes. He had to obtain the sword spirit. The sword emperor roared furiously, soul severing with a single strike. He attacked forcefully. He wanted to destroy the other party's soul and then take control of this body. Boom. The 6 paths of reincarnation. Lin Xian's eyes suddenly turned into the 6 paths of reincarnation world, standing in the air. He created this sword spirit. Then, the phantom of the samsara sword flew out from the 6 paths of reincarnation. It collided with the sword spirit. With a clang, the two burst into a bright light. The samsara sword phantom retreated. As for the sword spirit, it was also sent flying. The light on its body instantly dimmed. At the same time, the sword spirit seemed to have been stimulated by something and suddenly let out a sharp sound. Heaven and earth were broken in an instant. The souls of the people around were shattered. The few great emperors were also bleeding from their ears. Damn it! Was this guy crazy? Even the sword emperor's face was pale, and his blood was boiling. His soul was also shaking violently. He tried to control the sword spirit, but he found that he couldn't control it. In the next moment, the sword spirit left his body and rushed forward. Indeed, the sword spirit flew over, and its target was Lin Xian's eyes. To be exact, it was that Rinnegan. He killed his way out. Lin Xian's Rinnegan erupted with a shocking light. The 6 paths of reincarnation, like a shield, blocked the opponent. At the same time, he said coldly, "It seems that you are indeed related to the power of reincarnation." After that, he reached out his big hand and grabbed the sword spirit. The sword spirit frantically resisted, and a peerless crisis broke out. At this moment, his aura was so strong that even the sword emperor was sent flying. Several cracks appeared on the sword emperor's body. He was stunned. The sword spirit had such strength? To be honest, he really didn't know. Every few hundred or thousand years, a sword spirit would appear in their imperial sword villa. The reason was that there were countless spirit veins under the imperial sword villa, and these spirit veins seemed to be related to sword chi. Therefore, a sword spirit could be produced every 500 years. These sword spirits were regarded as treasures. Of course, there were some more peculiar ones, such as 1,000-year-old sword spirits. And this sword spirit in front of him was 10,000 years old. 10,000 years ago, the sword emperor discovered the existence of the other party. However, the other party's aura was still very weak at that time. The sword emperor had been secretly observing and silently cultivating. After 10,000 years, this sword spirit finally appeared. After the other party came out, the sword emperor was ecstatic. Later, he found that this sword spirit could destroy the soul and control the body. He had a previous plan. However, he never thought that this sword spirit could actually release a power beyond his imagination. This power was enough to kill him. Thinking of this, he felt a burst of fear. Even if there was no young man in front of him, one day, the sword spirit would suddenly attack him. Would he be able to resist it? Thinking of this, he was stunned. At the same time, the battle ahead became even more intense. The sword spirit rushed madly towards Lin Xian, as if he wanted to seize the Rinnegan. Lin Xian, on the other hand, sneered again and again. On one hand, he used the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation to resist the other party. On the other hand, his big hand kept patting on the sword spirit. Each hit made the sword spirit shake and tremble. Below, the Fire Wolf Emperor, Nan Feiyu, and the others were also stunned. They did not expect that the final scene would be like this. The final battle was not between the Sword Emperor and Lin Xian, but the Sword Spirit. Thunder Emperor said, "Do you want to join forces?" At this time, the battle was already very terrifying. The Sword Emperor was injured, and Lin Xian had been fighting for so long, so he should not have much strength left. If they suddenly joined forces, they might really be able to benefit from it. However, Nan Feiyu said, "Let's wait a little longer." She did not dare to make a move now. Humph! Lin Xian's cold snort came from between heaven and earth. In the next moment, he made a move. He used some immortal power. With a bang, he directly hit the sword spirit. As if struck by lightning, the sword spirit was instantly sent flying and landed in the mountain range in the distance. All of a sudden, The mountain range split apart and turned into a black hole. The sword spirit let out a cry of horror, and his power quickly dimmed. Everyone was stunned. The Sword Emperor could not believe it. On the other hand, Nan Feiyu and Lei Dong Emperor's expressions changed drastically. They were so scared that they knelt on the ground. Why was that power so familiar? Wasn't it the power that killed the Golden Palm Emperor? Chapter 61-65. Lin Xin struck out with the power of an immortal. Immediately, the sword spirit was suppressed and could no longer resist. The surrounding people were shocked. Did he succeed? This young sword god actually succeeded. The people of the Imperial Sword Villa went crazy. The Sword Emperor also couldn't believe it. As for Nan Feiyu and Lei Dong, they were stunned like statues. They were now sure that the young man in front of them was the one who killed the Golden Palm Emperor. At the thought of this possibility, their scalps went numb. The previous matter of joining forces and reaping the benefits of the fishermen had long been thrown to the back of their minds. What a joke! Even if they were beaten to death, they wouldn't dare to make a move again. Lin Xian ignored the thoughts of the others and walked towards the sword spirit. The Sword Emperor next to him roared. He activated the myriad sword array. He roared crazily and rushed back. He came to the center of the Imperial Sword Villa. The spiritual vein array around the Imperial Sword Villa all rose into the air and surrounded him. Soon after, the enormous sword soared into the sky, surrounded by countless smaller sword auras. This was the myriad sword array. I won't give you the sword spirit. The Sword Emperor roared to the sky. Then, the myriad sword array fell crazily. At this time, there was still blood at the corner of Lin Xian's mouth. This was caused by the instability of the immortal power. The surrounding people were stunned. Lin Xian was injured. Could he resist it? Lin Xian was also angry. He snorted and took out the immortal slaying sword. With a slash of the sword, the myriad sword array was shattered, and a sword mark cut through the void. With a boom, the Sword Emperor was split in half. Not only that, the entire Imperial Sword Villa was divided into two, and a bottomless abyss appeared in the middle. Boom, boom, boom. A violent explosion sounded, and everyone was stunned. Under this sword, countless powerhouses of the Imperial Sword Villa died. Even the Sword Emperor was seriously injured. The two halves of his body fell to the ground, trembling non-stop. How terrifying. The other party actually has such power. What's going on with that sword? Why does it make my hair stand on end? This isn't an ordinary extreme weapon, right? No, this is beyond extreme weapons. The first elder, Jin Jingyun, and the others fell to their knees in fear. Lin Xian held the banishing immortal sword and stared at the sword spirit. Then, he opened his rinnegan. In the next moment, a piercingly cold light erupted from his eyes. You are indeed related to the power of reincarnation. While suppressing the sword spirit, Lin Xian turned to look at the Sword Emperor. At this moment, the two halves of the Sword Monarch's body had already healed. However, he was heavily injured and his aura was extremely weak. Feeling Lin Xian's gaze, he was so scared that he kept retreating. He had long since lost the calm of an expert. Lin Xian asked in a low voice, "Where did you get this sword spirit?" At this moment, the Sword Monarch didn't dare to resist anymore and could only say obediently, "Our Imperial Sword Villa can produce a sword spirit every once in a while. This is produced from a spirit vein under the Imperial Sword Villa." He pointed downward. Lin Xian flew over and looked down. Previously, he had destroyed many spiritual veins with a single slash. At this moment, the aura below was somewhat chaotic. The Sword Monarch next to him said, "May I ask where you came from? My title of Sword Monarch has been lost to you. From now on, you are the new Sword Monarch." Hearing this, the eyes of countless disciples of the Imperial Sword Villa dimmed. Sword Monarch was such a supreme honor, but now, he had to give it to someone else? This was more than a slap in the face. Even the Sword Monarch was unwilling, but the other party was too strong, so he had nothing to say. However, Lin Xian shook his head. "Sword Monarch, I don't need this title, because my goal is the sword god. Sword god. The sword monarch was stunned after hearing this. That was an unattainable realm. He probably had no hope of reaching it in his life. But the young man in front of him said it so firmly. Could it be that he could really become a god? Lin Xian ignored him. He had already noticed the changes below, so he slashed out again. Suddenly, another big crack appeared. Countless palaces in the entire imperial sword villa collapsed. Lin Xian, on the other hand, had already rushed downwards. Below, there was a huge spiritual vein. At this moment, it had been cut off by Lin Xian. Lin Xian, on the other hand, rushed into the spirit vein and continuously attacked. The imperial sword villa was torn apart and turned into ruins. All the other disciples had fled. The first elder looked at the sword monarch and said, "Sword monarch, our foundation is gone. Our sect is destroyed." He cried. The sword monarch said, "Shut up. It's already a blessing that you're still alive. Don't offend the young sword god. Later, apologize to him with me." What was the imperial sword villa? What did it mean to understand? Staying alive was the most important thing. Below, Lin Xian cut open the spiritual vein and finally saw a fragment. The fragment was covered in moss and was dim. However, Lin Xian's Rinnegan violently jumped. Not only that, Lin Xian waved his hand and took out the fragment of the samsara sword. When the fragment came out, the dim and lightless fragment suddenly started shaking. Then, it burst out with endless light. The power of samsara was displayed, as if it had formed a world of its own. What was this? The surrounding people were all stunned. The sword monarch and the others also gasped. There was such a treasure under the imperial sword villa, and they didn't know about it. The sword monarch wanted to slap himself. If he had found such a treasure earlier, he wouldn't have ended up like this. If he had given it to the Fane of Destiny, he might have changed his fate. He might even have a chance to break through to the Earth Immortal realm. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. However, it was useless. Now, he could only watch. Lin Xian waved his hand and grabbed the fragment of the samsara sword. Then, the corners of his mouth raised. Great! The second fragment of the samsara sword. This way, the power of the Rinnegan would be stronger. The phantom of the samsara sword he summoned would be more powerful. This trip to the land of destiny was not in vain. After putting away the two fragments, Lin Xian rose into the air and arrived in the sky. The sword monarch and the others hurriedly cupped their fists and said, "Please forgive us for being rude to you before." Lin Xian said, "It's just a sword competition. I don't blame you." Then, he asked, "How do I summon the messenger?" The sword monarch was stunned. Then he understood that the other party was talking about the messenger of destiny. "Young master, I can help you summon it." The sword monarch took out a token and carefully held it in his hand. Then, he released immortal chi. Suddenly, the token emitted a ray of light, rushed into the air, and disappeared. The sword monarch said, "I've already informed the messenger of destiny. He will definitely come within a day." "Within a day? Okay, I'll wait." Lin Xian nodded. The surrounding people were also quiet. At this moment, they looked at Lin Xian with awe in their eyes. Lin Xian glanced at the broken ground and then said, "I got a lot of things from you. Moreover, your sect was destroyed. Fine, I'll give you some advice on sword techniques as a way to make up for it." Under other circumstances, if a young man said that he wanted to teach the sword monarch sword techniques, the surrounding people would probably laugh to death. But now, no one dared to laugh. In fact, their faces were full of envy, because Lin Xian's strength was too strong. His sword techniques were something they looked up to. After hearing this, the sword monarch's eyes lit up. "Thank you, young master," Lin Xian said. "Your sword techniques are very strong and your sword Dao is very terrifying, but you lack something." Chapter 61-66. Lin Xian's words puzzled everyone. What did he lack? Did the Sword Emperor lack anything? Even the Sword Emperor was at a loss. Lin Xian said, "Lack of hope." These words were said to the Sword Emperor, but in fact, it was also said to everyone else. During this period of time, Lin Xian had seen many great emperors in the land of destiny. However, he found that these great emperors all lacked hope. In fact, there was nothing they could do. This was the land of destiny. Fate was determined by the heavens. It was a very sad thing to know one's own fate. Therefore, these people had a slim chance and naturally had no hope. However, Lin Xian was different. Lin Xian came from thousands of worlds, and he had seen too many possibilities. For example, the Yi family's celestial emperor, who could not cultivate, swept through thousands of worlds. There were also some weak demonic beasts, such as a green lotus, who was extremely humble at first, but in the end, also grew into an eternal giant. There were also warriors who were defeated all the way, but in the end, they also became strong and powerful. These people were all full of hope. However, the people in the land of destiny did not. The Sword Emperor was stunned after hearing this. The others also seemed to be enlightened. Hope? It was easier said than done. The great emperors all smiled bitterly. Although they couldn't see their own fate clearly, they could guess it. Their martial arts path had probably reached the end. It was as difficult as ascending to the sky to improve. Lin Xian shook his head and continued, I know that each of you has your own fate. However, you can't accept your fate so easily. At least, you have hope. Isn't the Fane of Destiny able to change your fate? Back then, when I didn't know about the Fane of Destiny, I dared to go against the heavens. I walked a path that no one has ever walked before. Why can't you do it? After speaking, Lin Xian did not speak anymore. He walked to the side and waited silently. The great emperors were deep in thought. After a while, the Sword Emperor bowed deeply to Lin Xian. Thank you for your guidance. Lin Xian nodded and did not say anything. He saw all these people's expressions. It was probably very difficult for these people to have hope. That would depend on their own luck. While Lin Xian was waiting, in an extremely mysterious place in the land of destiny, Lin Xian was still waiting. There was a godlike palace here. This place was the Fortune Shrine. Not many great emperors had been here before, let alone ordinary people. The Temple of Fortune was extremely mysterious. It was like a temple in legends. Among them, on one of the islands in the sky, there was a huge compass flickering. The compass was all-encompassing and seemed to have countless rays of light, just like the stars in the heavens. They had their own trajectories. This compass was called the Destiny Compass. The points of light on it were not stars, but each person's life providence. It was destined. In other words, these people had to follow their own paths and not make the slightest mistake. Unless someone could come here and accept the heaven-defying change of fate. A figure stood in front of the Destiny Compass. This figure was abnormally mysterious. He frowned as he looked at the Destiny Compass. The Destiny Compass had changed. A streak of starlight streaked across the compass like a shooting star. At this moment, an old man came from behind. This old man was too old. Who knew how many tens of thousands of years he had lived? He was leaning on a walking stick. When he saw the shooting star, the walking stick fell to the ground. He exclaimed, defiant of fate. Someone had actually used his own strength to change his own fate. It was unbelievable. After all, other than the Fortune Shrine, no one else had this kind of power. First Elder, you're here. The figure in front of him said lightly. The voice was emotionless, but it was very pleasant to the ears. It turned out that the person standing in front of him was a woman. The white-haired old man called the First Elder walked to the front and said, Goddess, who is this person? The woman in front of him was the goddess of the Fortune Shrine. Hearing the First Elder's words, she opened her red lips and said, He should be someone outside the land of destiny. Someone from the heavens? The First Elder was shocked. Someone else had come. It seemed that the outside world had ushered in a golden age. A golden age? The goddess shook her head. For some people, it was a golden age, but for others, it was the end of the world. That was indeed the case. The top masters and supreme geniuses thought it was an opportunity. They could go to other mysterious places to find all kinds of lost treasures and heavenly materials. However, for some ordinary martial artists, it was a disaster. The arrival of the deity ground. the appearance of the Nirvana realm, the opening of hell, and the arrival of the netherworld. This caused countless experts to sweep across the area. Those who followed would prosper, and those who resisted would die. Anyone who resisted would die immediately. Who knew how many creatures had turned into bones in this battle? The goddess in front of him said, "It's not the first time someone from the heavens has come. However, this person is a bit strange. His life providence was extremely unstable and was already showing signs of shattering. In other words, he broke through the previous heaven-defying fate, but he didn't completely form a new fate. In other words, he didn't succeed in changing his fate. He will definitely come to us." The first elder behind her said, "Then we'll just wait. With his strength, it won't be long before he comes." The goddess nodded. "No, his fate is very strange. Have you seen someone who can change fate with his own strength? He must have some incredible power on him. So, I want to see him immediately. To be honest, I'm also very curious. What kind of person has come from the outside?" The first elder began to send a voice transmission to the messenger of fate. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. A figure appeared in the sky. This figure seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Before this, the great emperor didn't feel anything. Lin Xian seemed to have sensed something. There was a trace of light in his eyes. The next moment, he stood up and looked up at the sky. There was a young figure in the sky. He was wearing an ancient robe. Just like that, he stood quietly in the void, as if he was the ruler of the world, looking down. The sword monarch also stood up and said, "Lin Gongzi, this is the messenger of fate." The others looked at him curiously. Was this the messenger of fate? To be honest, this was the first time they had seen him because they weren't qualified at all. This time, if it weren't for Lin Xian, they probably wouldn't have seen him in their lives. The messenger of fate stood in the air expressionlessly. He said in a deep voice, "Sword monarch, you summoned me, but you found the qualification to change fate." Facing the messenger of fate, the sword monarch didn't dare to be careless. Although he was high and mighty before, he was incomparably respectful at this moment. He cupped his fists and said, "Messenger, this time, it's not me, but Lin Gongzi. He wants to go to the Temple of Fate to change fate." "You?" The messenger of fate was surprised and looked at Lin Xian. Lin Xian waved his hand and took out the sword spirit from before. He said, "Yes, I want to go to the Temple of Fate to change fate." When he saw the sword spirit, the messenger of fate was stunned. Good stuff. He could naturally feel that it was extraordinary. The others also exclaimed, "You want to exchange this sword spirit for it?" It was incredible. Even the sword monarch felt a burst of heartache. This sword spirit had magical power. Lin Xian didn't care. The sword spirit was condensed from the fragments of the Samsara sword. Now, he could get the fragments of the Samsara sword. This sword spirit was not important at all. Chapter 61-67. The messenger of fate was also surprised. Sword spirit, wasn't this something unique to the Imperial Sword Villa? Moreover, looking at how precious this spirit artifact was, why didn't the Sword Emperor take it out? Instead, he gave it to the other party. The Sword Emperor was covered in injuries, and the Imperial Sword Villa was torn apart. Needless to say, a top-level battle had just happened, and the Sword Emperor had lost. The kid in front of him had won. It was really surprising. A top genius had actually appeared in the land of ice and fire. The messenger of fate was surprised and looked at Lin Xian. Perhaps this kid could really change his fate in the future. His attitude towards Lin Xian was much better. After all, everyone who could change their fate was extremely rare and precious. At the same time, they were extremely powerful people. He said, "Sword Spirit, you are indeed qualified to go to the Temple of Fate. However, let me say it in advance. You can only change your luck, not your fate." "Can't change fate?" Lin Xian frowned. "Why?" The messenger of fate explained. "Although your sword spirit is precious, the price you have to pay to change your fate is too great. One sword spirit is not enough." "What are the conditions?" "Everyone is different. Why don't you come back to the Temple of Fate with me and test it? When the time comes, you will know. All right. Lin Xian nodded. He had to go to the Temple of Fate anyway. He was still very curious about this place. What kind of power could change someone's fate? The messenger of fate was about to leave, but in the next moment, he was stunned. He stopped in midair, and his expression became extremely respectful, because he heard the voice transmission of the great elder of the Temple of Fate. The next moment, he took a deep breath, and his eyes became sharp. He said, "Let's hurry up and speed up, because I have other things to do." Other things? Lin Xian was stunned. The Sword Emperor and the others were also at a loss. The messenger of fate said, "There's no harm in telling you, because I have received an order from the temple to find a person with all my strength. During this period of time, a strange person may appear. He is not the same as our land of fate. If someone claims to be from the myriad worlds, tell me immediately. Do you understand?" The messenger of fate looked at the Sword Emperor. After all, the Sword Emperor was very powerful in the land of ice and fire. With the other party's help, it would save him a lot of trouble. From the myriad worlds? The Arch was at a loss. Although he didn't quite understand what it meant, he didn't know what it meant. However, he still cupped his fists and said, "Don't worry, I will do my best to search." Lin Xian was stunned when he heard this. He came from the myriad realms? That was him. As far as he knew, it was very difficult for people from the outside world to come to the land of destiny. During this period of time, he seemed to be the only person in the entire universe who could come to the land of destiny. However, he did not immediately reveal his identity. Who knew why the Fane of Fortune was looking for him? According to what he had learned recently, it was almost impossible to go to the Fortune Shrine. But now, the other party was actually taking the initiative. There must be something fishy going on. Lin Xian was silent. He silently followed the messenger of fate, then flew up into the air and left. After he disappeared, the Sword Monarch said loudly, "All disciples of the Imperial Sword Villa, listen to my order. Find me a person from all the realms. Do you understand? Whoever finds him, I will reward him handsomely. I will teach him my Thunderclap sword technique." All the disciples' eyes turned red. The Thunderclap sword technique was a peerless immortal technique created by the Sword Monarch. If they could learn it, it would definitely increase their strength greatly. More importantly, they might become the successor of the Sword Monarch. Everyone flew desperately into the distance and began to search. The Fire Wolf Emperor, the Ant Emperor, the Vermilion Bird Emperor, and the others also returned. They also wanted their own people to search. The messenger of fate cared so much about this matter. Once they found him, it would be a great merit. Maybe they could change their fate. These people moved quickly. Lin Xian saw this and shook his head slightly. He was afraid that these people would not be able to find him, because he had already gone to the Fortune Shrine. He did not care about what was happening below. Lin Xian sped up. When they reached the sky, the messenger of fate waved his hand and took out a sword. The two of them boarded the spirit boat. The spirit boat activated the array formation and instantly teleported away. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Xian realized that there was no longer a spatial passage around them. Instead, what appeared was a palace from the myths and legends. What a terrifying spirit boat. I can't sense any direction in the entire space. No wonder the Fortune Shrine was so mysterious. Even his Rinnegan couldn't sense the direction of this teleportation, let alone others. Come over and follow me. Don't go anywhere else, and don't use your soul to probe me. There are many powerful formations in the Fortune Shrine. Once you are attacked by the formation, your body and soul will be destroyed. I can't save you. Do you understand? The messenger of fate said coldly. He didn't think that Lin Xian was surprised, because he had brought some emperor-level powerhouses with him before. These people didn't dare to probe casually. Lin Xian nodded and followed. He didn't probe his soul out, but still curiously observed. He discovered that there were indeed some terrifying formations here. Moreover, there was a mysterious power. Although this power was dormant, Lin Xian could feel it and was a little shocked. The Fortune Shrine, in addition to being able to change fate, was also called a shrine. Was it because there were land immortals here? How many of them were there? Had the people from the land of destiny ever left? Would they participate in the battle between the Nirvana realm and the divine realm? He didn't know either. The entire fortune shrine was made up of floating islands. These days, the salary was very high. On each island, there were thousands of rays of light, thousands of rainbows, and countless palaces. The messenger of fate brought Lin Xian to the third sky island. After landing, there weren't many palaces on the island, but there were many black stones. The messenger of fate explained, "These are life stones, which can test your fate. According to your fate, the price you have to pay to change your fate is different. Now, let's test your fate. After you finish the test, I will take you to another island, where you can change your luck." Just as Lin Xian was about to test his fate, on the seventh sky island, the goddess frowned. "Is he here?" This time, the messenger of fate was very efficient. The great elder also said, "Why can you come here directly to the third island? It's more accurate to test your fate here." "Forget it. I'll bring him here." The great elder's figure flickered, and he went to the third island. On the third island, Lin Xian came to the black life stone and was about to test it. At this moment, a figure appeared in the air. It was an old man, and his aura was even more powerful and unfathomable. The messenger of fate hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, great elder." He knelt down on one knee, and his expression was extremely respectful. At the same time, he was extremely shocked. Why is the great elder here? After all, he was just a messenger, and normally, he wasn't qualified to see the great elder. The great elder smiled and said, "Shichi, you did well this time. Go and get a portion of the water of destiny." The messenger of fate was stunned. His name was Tang Shichi. What did he do? He just got a portion of the water of destiny. The water of destiny was so precious that he could only get a bottle every 100 years. But now, he was given a bottle. "This is what you deserve. I asked you to bring the person from the myriad worlds here. I didn't expect you to bring him here so soon." The goddess was very satisfied. The person from the myriad worlds didn't come. Tang Shichi was stunned. He just brought a young man who wanted to change his fate. Wait. Suddenly, he was stunned and looked at Lin Xian with a face full of shock. Could it be that this kid came from the myriad realms? No way. What a coincidence. Chapter 61-68. Lin Xian looked at the first elder and said, "I am indeed from all the realms. But how do you know?" The first elder smiled. "Your fate is very special. I sensed it as soon as you came. Come with me. The goddess is waiting for you." Goddess? Hearing this, the messenger was very envious because he hadn't seen the goddess yet. Not everyone was qualified to see the goddess. He didn't expect that this kid could see the goddess as soon as he arrived. The goddess of the fane of destiny? Lin Xian was surprised. He was even more curious now. Why was she looking for him? He nodded and said, "Senior, please." The first elder took Lin Xian and left the sky, flying directly to the seventh island. On the seventh island, there was the destiny compass. When Lin Xian arrived, he felt the aura here was even more mysterious and strange. "You are finally here." In front of him, the goddess of destiny turned around and looked at Lin Xian. She wore a veil, and her eyes were as deep as the stars, as if she could control the fate of others. "You are the goddess of destiny. What do you want from me?" Lin Xian asked. The goddess of destiny walked over and circled Lin Xian. Then she nodded and said, "Your fate has indeed been broken. However, a new fate hasn't been formed. You are here to change your fate, right?" "That's right," Lin Xian said. "I am here to change my fate. Tell me your conditions." "There is no hurry," the goddess said. "I have to see you first. What's so special about you?" "Special?" Lin Xian was surprised and said, "Of course I'm special." The first elder also walked over and said, "You are the first person I have seen who broke through the fate on his own. Can't you do it?" Lin Xian was surprised. Isn't the fane of destiny helping others change their fate? However, the goddess said, "We can help others change their fate, but when it comes to ourselves, we can't change our fate." Lin Xian was stunned again. It seemed that the fortune shrine wasn't omnipotent. Great Elder said, "So, do you know how special you are? If your fate is changed by us, that's fine, because you're not the first. However, you didn't use the power of the Shrine of Destiny. You broke through the birth chart on your own. Although it didn't completely change fate, it was enough to create a new world. So, we are curious. How did you do it?" Lin Xian thought for a moment and said, "If I tell you, can you help me change my fate?" The goddess shook her head. "I can't. The price of changing your fate is too high. Originally, we didn't have to help you change your fate. However, if you tell me your secret and I'm interested, I might be able to convince the Fortune Shrine to help you change your fate." "Well, it wasn't really a secret," Lin Xian said. "I have merged the divine Tao and the immortal Tao into one. I walk the Tao of immortals." "What? You walked the Tao of immortals, and you succeeded?" the Great Elder exclaimed. Even the goddess of fate was shocked. "Can I take a look at it?" She didn't believe it either. Lin Xian stretched out his hand and released the power of immortals. Suddenly, the whole world shook violently. The meteor on the destiny compass seemed to glow even more resplendently. Some people of the Fortune Shrine looked up at the sky. What happened? On the third island, the messenger of fate was also surprised. He felt an extremely terrifying power coming from the seventh island. He had never seen this kind of power before. For a moment, many figures flew toward the seventh island. However, the goddess of fate said, "If there's nothing, you don't have to come." Hearing the goddess's words, the masters all returned to their palaces. However, they were very curious about what happened on the seventh island. On the island, Lin Xian withdrew the power of immortals and said, "That's it. Although I have condensed the power of immortals, this state is not stable. Once I use it, my body will be affected. So, I came here to completely consolidate the power of immortals. I don't know if you have any way." The goddess and the Great Elder were silent. After a while, the Great Elder said, "Young man, you really don't want to live. You're not the only one who wants to walk the path of immortals. There were many people who wanted to walk this path before, but without exception, they all died. None of them succeeded. The situation forced me to walk this path. I have no choice." Lin Xian said in a deep voice, "Can you help me change my fate?" "I can agree to any conditions." Hearing this, the Great Elder also looked at the Goddess of Fate. The Goddess of Fate said, "Okay, I'll change your fate." The Great Elder exclaimed, "Goddess, the price is too high. He walks the path of immortals. We have never seen such a thing. If it doesn't succeed, it will be a great loss to us." The goddess said, "Great Elder, no need to say anything. I've made up my mind." "Great, thank you. What do you need me to do?" Lin Xian was overjoyed. The Fortune Shrine was extremely mysterious. If they really helped him, he might really succeed. The goddess said, "You walk the path of immortals. It's too difficult to help you change your fate. It will take a long time." Lin Xian asked, "How much time?" The sacred land and the Nirvana realm were still fighting outside. How was the situation? He couldn't stay for too long. 500 years. The saintess said, "What? 500 years? No, that was too long." The Great Elder also frowned and said, "Young man, you are too greedy. It's as difficult as climbing to the sky to change your fate. Even the Fortune Shrine will have to pay a great price. 500 years? You think it's too long?" One had to know that if it were anyone else, not to mention 500 years, he could even afford to wait for 50,000 years. The Goddess of Fate said, 500 years is just an ideal time. Maybe it will take longer. As for the battle outside, I've heard some of it. They have been fighting for millions of years. 500 years is nothing to them. But it's very important to you, because once you succeed, you will be the only one in the world. Otherwise, in your current state, sooner or later, your foundation will be broken and you will become a useless person. Okay. Lin Xian nodded and said, "Then let's do as you say. Do I have to stay in the Fortune Shrine?" "No, leave." Your first task is to live for 100 years. I will announce to the public that you are the Destiny's Child. Those who want to change their fate will come to you. You have to live for 100 years first. Hearing this, the great elder's eyelids twitched. You are pushing this kid into a sea of fire. There were many masters in the land of destiny, but it was very difficult to change one's fate. Once Lin Xian had the title of Destiny's Child, those people would flock to him. They wanted to explore Lin Xian's secrets. The goddess did say, "These 100 years will be very dangerous. Countless masters will come. Great emperors are nothing, but super great emperors may appear. This is a test for you. If you can't even live for 100 years, we don't have to pay a great price to change your fate. Do you understand? Yes, I will come to you after 100 years." Lin Xian turned and left. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.